Chapter 259. Gaz's heart was filled with hatred. This old man from the Li clan shouldn't have touched his sore spot. Seeing the gazes of the crowd landing on him, Gaz felt that this was the first time he had felt so humiliated. He had arrogantly said that Qin Wentian was useless. Yet Qin Wentian single-handedly obtained the top position for the White Deer Institute. Gaz had nothing to do with this. How could he have imagined that Qin Wentian, who was so young, would have such high attainments in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions? Since this was the case, why did the White Deer Institute still invite him? Could it be that even the White Deer Institute didn't know how high Qin Wentian's attainments in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions were? Not only was Gaz taken aback, the spectators from the star-seizing manor were all deeply shocked as they cast a deep glance at Qin Wentian. In the future, this young man had the chance to become a fourth-ranked grandmaster like Grandmaster Fenrir. The status of a fourth-ranked grandmaster was completely different from that of a third-ranked grandmaster. A fourth-ranked grandmaster could inscribe fourth-ranked divine inscriptions and inscribe fourth-ranked grand formations. Fourth-ranked grand formations could deal with heavenly dipper sovereigns. This was the reason why the Yin clan was willing to sacrifice Yin Kong. Because of the existence of the White Deer Institute, they couldn't kill Qin Wentian. In that case, they wouldn't be able to obstruct his growth. Since there was no way to obstruct him, the only way was to resolve the enmity between them. Hence they sacrificed Yin Kong. Qin Wentian's countenance was calm. Obtaining the top position in the exchange was something he had promised Bai Lu Yi. Similarly, he needed an opportunity like this as well. This way the White Deer Institute would have a clearer understanding of him, and his path in the future would be much smoother. Thank you all for your hard work. At this moment, atop the city walls, the sharp-eyed middle-aged man beside Grandmaster Fenrir glanced at the participants as he indifferently stated, according to the agreement, the White Deer Institute, other than the Grandmasters participating in the exchange, can bring another 10 people with them to the refinement grounds. The Watermoon Mountain Villa can bring 8, and the Demon Cult can bring 6. Everyone nodded their heads. They had prepared for this exchange for a long time precisely for the sake of this. Now they had finally obtained the qualifications to participate. 3 days later, bring your men and gather here. After that, we will set off for the refinement grounds. In addition, the other transcendent powers of the Moon Continent will also be heading there at the same time. Now go and prepare yourselves. The sharp-looking middle-aged man continued, his words causing the countenances of the crowd to stiffen. They all understood very well that the fortuitous encounters in this trial were great, but there was also great danger. In the Eastern Divine Region, other than these 3 powers, there was also the Zhaixing Manor. Outside of the Eastern Divine Region, there were 3 other transcendent powers in the Moon Continent, and all of them would be bringing many people to the training grounds. However, there would be intense competition between these powers, and in addition to the inherent dangers of the training grounds, this would definitely not be an easy training ground. The Taoist cultivation grounds of the Celestial Lord, the participants this time around should all be existences at the peak of Yuanfu. Since Yang Fan is participating, what about the other rankers on the Heavenly Fate rankings? Many people thought this, but they still stood up one after another, bowed towards the top of the city walls and then left. After the departure of the crowd, Fenrir smiled at the sharp-looking middle-aged man. These people are not bad. It seems like the number of participants entering the refinement grounds this time around would be unprecedented. The middle-aged man nodded his head. What a pity. It would be perfect if Grandmaster Fenrir could enter as well. Haha, if I can enter, the Heavenly Star Border Realm cultivators of the Zhaixing Manor would be able to as well, and there would be nothing left for me to do. Since today's matter has come to an end, I shall take my leave. Fenrir clasped his hands, bid farewell and left. Young Fan, what do you think? The sharp-looking middle-aged man asked Young Fan. Let's hope that they would be of some use. Young Fan replied in a low voice. In his eyes, no matter how powerful a third-ranked divine inscriptionist was, they were still just divine inscriptionists. To many, they might be extremely important, but to a transcendent power like Yang Fan, being a divine inscriptionist was just another occupation. There was nothing special about it. He didn't lack divine weapons. In terms of combat prowess, he was confident that he would be able to kill them 100 times over. From Yang Fan's point of view, for stellar martial cultivators, strength was everything. These divine inscriptionists would only be of some use to him when he entered the refinement grounds. That was all. In the White Deer Institute, after Qin Wentian and the rest returned, the mood of the White Deer Institute was extremely good. Now that they had obtained the first position, they would be able to obtain 10 slots. Entering the refinement grounds of divine inscriptions, every single slot was extremely important to them. It meant that they would be able to have another expert enter the refinement grounds. At this moment in a great hall, several members of the White Deer Institute were gathered. Qin Wentian was present as well, but Gauze wasn't present. Gauze knew that he had no face to return to the White Deer Institute, and hence, he didn't return with those from the White Deer Institute. The White Deer Institute naturally didn't mind Gauze's departure. With Qin Wentian around, Gauze's usefulness was negligible. However, they couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. They initially thought that Gauze would be able to help, but who would have thought that the arrogant Gauze would end up in a conflict with Qin Wentian? With regards to the candidates for the refinement grounds, does anyone have any opinions? In the Great Hall, there were several elders of the White Deer Institute present. At this moment the large-eyed elder spoke, seeking the opinions of the crowd. Since the first position was obtained by Qin Wentian, why don't we first ask him if he has any requests? A scholarly-looking old man in white faintly spoke. The large-eyed elder nodded. It's only right. After speaking, he turned his gaze onto Qin Wentian as he smiled. Qin Wentian, the reason why we obtained the first position is because of you. Let me briefly explain to you the details of the refinement grounds. Recently, there's a high possibility that the refinement grounds are the Tao cultivation grounds of an ascendant. For ascendants who are proficient in divine inscriptions, they would be able to obtain great fortune, but at the same time they would also face immense danger. This time around there would definitely be many geniuses from the various transcendent powers. Since you've obtained the first position, do you have any requests for the candidates? An expression of contemplation appeared on Qin Wentian's face. This time around there would be both fortune and danger. If one's strength was too weak, they would definitely encounter unforeseen dangers. Even with Chu Meng's strength, he wouldn't be able to survive. If there was any danger, the first person the Institute would protect would definitely be Bai Lui, followed by him. The Institute has already decided. I have no requests. Qin Wentian indifferently replied. It was best if Chu Meng and Fan Le didn't enter. The people of the White Deer Institute wouldn't be able to protect them all. Since you have no requests, let's make the decision then. Little E, accompany Wentian out for a walk. The large-eyed elder smiled at Bai Lui. Bai Lui glanced at Qin Wentian and glared at him, causing a bitter smile to appear on Qin Wentian's face. After exiting the Great Hall, Qin Wentian couldn't help but to smile bitterly when he saw that Bai Lui's pure countenance was still filled with anger. Why are you glaring at me? Now that the people of the Institute have misunderstood, I'm afraid that even if I tried to explain, nobody would listen to me, Bai Lui gloomily stated. Earlier, the large-eyed elder had nodded to her with a smile, allowing her to accompany Qin Wentian for a walk. How could Bai Lui not know what this meant? The large-eyed elder had already acknowledged Qin Wentian, and didn't object to their relationship. However, she and Qin Wentian were innocent, yet the elders of the Institute still thought that there was something between them. How could she not be depressed? Do you want me to explain? Qin Wentian shrugged. Do you really want to draw a clear line between us? Bai Lui's lips twitched. Momentarily, black lines appeared on Qin Wentian's forehead. The thoughts of beauties were truly unfathomable. Seeing the embarrassed look on Qin Wentian's face, a smile blossomed on Bai Lui's face. I'm just teasing you, there's no need to explain. Let's go. Where do you want to go? Let's go to the Hell Arena for a stroll. Recently, I've been depleting my Yuan meteor stones at a rapid rate. I still need to enter the refinement grounds, so I need to make some preparations first. Qin Wentian laughed, causing Bai Lui to roll her eyes. What did this fellow treat the Hell Arena as? A place where Yuan meteor stones were sent to him? However, after witnessing Qin Wentian's performance in the Hell Arena, Bai Lui could only be speechless. Now that he had stepped into the third level of Yuanfu, his opponents were naturally at the same level as him. Yet, there was still no one who could defeat him. This monstrous fellow was unrivaled within the same level. Nobody could pose a threat to him. His battle record instantly rose from 60 consecutive victories to 90. Kiran's name was known by more and more people. When he was at the second level of Yuanfu, he won 60 consecutive victories. And not long after, when he stepped into the third level of Yuanfu, he won another 30 consecutive victories. The next time he appeared, he would most probably join the ranks of those who had achieved 100 consecutive victories. The names of those who achieved 100 consecutive victories in the Hell Arena were all extremely famous. It was unknown if Kiran would be able to break the record of the Hell Arena. In the Pill Emperor Hall, they were also discussing the matter regarding the refinement grounds. The 4 transcendent powers of the Moon continent were jointly in charge of the entrance to the refinement grounds. They had an agreement that every year when the refinement grounds opened, each transcendent power must send an equal number of people to enter. This time around, the number of participants was set at 20. Zhanshan, for this refinement grounds, you will be the leader. A middle-aged man spoke to the person standing in front of him. This young man exuded an aura of elegance and was extraordinarily handsome. With a single glance, he looked like an ordinary scholar. He was none other than a heavens chosen from the Pill Emperor Hall, ranked number 11 on the Heavenly Fate rankings, Zhan Chan. Disciple understands. Zhan Chen nodded his head lightly, after which, he shifted his gaze onto a beautiful middle-aged woman standing beside the middle-aged man. Although this beautiful woman was already quite old, she exuded an aura of maturity. When she was younger, she must have been a femme fatale. This woman was none other than the beloved daughter of the Pill Emperor, Luo He. Martial aunt. I wonder which junior brother and junior sister are you planning to send? Junior sister Qingcheng. I'm afraid martial aunt won't allow you to enter. Zhanshan smiled at Luo He. Qingcheng's cultivation base isn't high enough. It's best if she doesn't take the risk. However, Bai Fei wishes to go, I won't stop her. Just bring her along. Luo He smiled at Zhanshan. Junior sister, you really dote on Qingcheng a lot. You can't bear to see her take the risk. The middle-aged man beside her laughed. These days those fellows all wanted to discuss marriage, yet they were all rejected by you. Junior sister, do you have any plans in mind? What plans can I have? I'll leave it up to her. I heard that the Hua clan has their own plans, but I don't really wish for Qingcheng to marry into the Hua clan. Sadly, Zhanshan already has a companion. If not, I would have betrothed Qingcheng to Zhanshan. Luo He laughed. Evidently, she was extremely fond of this heavens chosen from the Pill Emperor Hall. Chapter 260. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. In the star-seizing manner, the 3 transcendent powers gathered. However, the number of participants this time around was much smaller than before. After all, there was a limit to the number of participants allowed to enter the secret realm. For the White Deer Institute, Qin Wentian Bai Lu Yi, and 10 other participants made up a total of 12 participants. For the Watermoon Mountain Villa, the 3 brothers of the Li clan and 8 others made up a total of 11 participants. As for the demon cult, because only the young man who participated in the exchange had survived, they added another 6 participants, making up a total of 7 participants. The 3 transcendent powers had a total of 30 participants. 6 of them were divine inscriptionists, while the others were all powerful Yuanfu cultivators. For example, other than Qin Wentian and Bai Lui, the rest were all at the 9th level of Yuanfu. With the White Deer Institute's many years of history, it wasn't difficult to find 10 Yuanfu cultivators. Not only that, their combat prowess was exceedingly high, especially Bai Lu Jing, a ranker in the Heavenly Fate rankings. He was the leader of the White Deer Institute. Little brother Qin, if you encounter any difficulties in the secret realm, let's work together to resolve them. At this moment, the 3 brothers of the Li clan turned their gazes onto Qin Wentian as they greeted him. Uncle Li is right. We don't have many divine inscriptionists, we naturally have to work together. Qin Wentian nodded his head. They were the scouts for the secret realm, but their strength was considered to be on the weaker side. But if they wanted to venture deeper into the secret realm, it would be much more convenient for them to have divine inscriptionists with them. You're all here. At this moment, a voice drifted over from the top of the city walls. After which, the crowd inclined their heads and saw Yang Fan leading a group of 20 experts walking over. All of their auras were extremely powerful, and when their gazes swept over, A terrifying sharpness could be felt in their eyes. This time around, the members of the star-seizing manor were all elites at the Yuanfu realm. The stronger one was, the greater their chances of success would be. The sharp-looking middle-aged man from back then also appeared. He was the one leading the group today. He waved his hands and stated, "Since we're all here, let's move out." Yes. Everyone nodded as they soared up into the air. A group of figures majestically headed towards a certain location in the moon continent. The refinement grounds of divine inscriptions was one of the 18 refinement grounds of Grand Xia. It was on par with the refinement grounds of the spirit beasts and the refinement grounds of celestial souls that Qin Wentian had entered before. For the spirit beast refinement grounds, there were many transcendent powers that had entrances to it. The spirit beast refinement grounds was controlled by Fairy Qingmei of the Celestial Lake Palace. As for the secret realm of divine inscriptions, because it was located in the moon continent, it was under the control of the 4 transcendent powers of the moon continent. Of the 4 transcendent powers in the moon continent, the star-seizing manor of the eastern region, the Skyember sect of the southern region, the Pill Emperor Hall of the central region, and the Hua clan of the northern region. Only the western region didn't have a transcendent power. The location of the refinement grounds for divine inscriptions was located in the western regions of the moon continent. This place was also known as the Western Desert. In the Western Desert, yellow sand covered the earth, causing it to glow with a golden hue. As far as the eye could see, there was no end to it. Gusts of wind blew past, causing the golden earth to emit rustling sounds. For thousands of miles, not a single human silhouette could be seen. The entire place was filled with an aura of desolation. And right in this quiet and desolate Western Desert, in a certain space, a black dot suddenly appeared. As the black dot drew nearer, an aura of destruction permeated the air, as the whistling sounds of the wind were exceptionally ear-piercing to the ears. In the blink of an eye, the black dot transformed into a black-colored tempest. The sky abruptly turned pitch black, and the oppressive pressure of the tempest made people feel as though it was the end of the world. The yellow sand was swept into the air, dancing together with the tempest. If there was someone here, they would definitely know that this was the black tempest that would appear once in a while in the Western Desert. However, at this moment, a group of silhouettes could be seen moving together with the tempest, heading towards the depths of the Western Desert. How unlucky to have to encounter this damnable tempest. One of the silhouettes cursed in a low voice, feeling somewhat depressed. This group of people exuded an extraordinary aura. They were none other than those who were rushing towards the refinement grounds of divine inscriptions. The person in the lead was a young man with a muscular physique. His countenance was etched with a hint of arrogance, and his entire body exuded a tyrannical aura. His countenance involuntarily gave off a sense of imposingness. This person's name was Zhao Lai, and just like his name, his personality was like a raging inferno. He was a heavens chosen from the Skyember sect, and one of the 4 heavens chosen of the moon continent, ranked number 28 on the heavenly fate ranking. Among the 4 heavens chosen, Zhao Lai was ranked last, but he had never been willing to admit defeat. At this moment, an intense heat could be seen flickering in his eyes. He'd heard that Yang Fan and Zhan Chun had also come this time around. He truly wanted to see how strong were these 2 heavens chosen who were ranked higher than him on the heavenly fate rankings. Had they already broken through to the heavenly dipper realm? What a pity that Hua Taishu didn't come this time around. I won't be able to witness the glory of the top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings. But with Zhan Chun, Yang Fan, Bai Lu Jing and the rest, this trip won't be too boring. Zhao Lai walked out from the tempest, his voice filled with pride. His eyes were like a ball of fire that blazed. In the vast moon continent, other than the 4 heavens chosen, there were also several other rankers on the heavenly fate rankings, such as Bai Lu Jing from the White Deer Institute. Among these people there were both young and old, and this time around there would definitely be quite a few who would enter the refinement grounds of divine inscriptions. In addition to that rumor, how could Zhao Lai not be filled with anticipation? Increasing his speed, Zhao Lai finally saw an ancient desert city in front of him. This ancient city occupied an extremely vast area, as though it had been excavated by someone. In all 4 directions of the ancient city, there were many experts guarding it. These were none other than the transcendent powers of the moon continent. They were all here to guard the entrance to the refinement grounds of divine inscriptions. At the front of the ancient desert city, there were many silhouettes that were divided into 3 camps. With a single glance, Zhao Lai knew which power these people belonged to. Haha, Zhanshan, young fan, how have you been? Zhao Lai laughed. Momentarily, Zhanshan from the Pill Emperor Hall and Young Fan from the Star-Seizing Manor both turned their gazes towards Zhao Lai. Zhanshan smiled. Brother Zhao Lai, how have you been recently? As for Young Fan, he didn't say anything. It was as though this was his personality. He didn't like to speak too much. Since I knew you guys were coming, how could I not be well? Zhao Lai's voice was extremely loud. His gaze then shifted to the Hua clan's camp, locking onto a certain person as he laughed. Hua Taishu didn't come, but you did. Now, does the Hua clan want to nurture a second Hua Taishu? The young man from the Hua clan inclined his head, his eyes gleaming with sharpness as he stared at Zhao Lai. This young man was named Hua Feng, and his cultivation base was naturally at the peak of Yuanfu. Not only that, he was ranked number 60 in the Heavenly Fate rankings. Being able to rank number 60 at such a young age, he could be considered one of the most outstanding characters in the Moon continent. As for why he wasn't so dazzling, it was because there was another person in the Hua clan, Hua Taishu. With Hua Taishu around, everyone in the Hua clan lost their splendor. No matter how outstanding they were, they could only serve as foils. You still like to talk nonsense? Hua Feng faintly remarked, his words causing a fiery light to flicker in Zhao Lai's eyes. Not only do I like to talk nonsense, I like to battle as well. I hope you will have the opportunity to spar with me in the future. Anytime, Hua Feng indifferently replied, as he shifted his gaze away, no longer bothering with Zhao Lai. Zhao Lai, a Heaven's Chosen from the Sky Ember sect, ranked number 28 in the Heavenly Fate rankings. Hua Feng, the most outstanding young man in the Hua clan other than Hua Taishu, ranked number 60. In the Star-Seizing Manor's camp, Bai Lui spoke in a low voice to Qin Wentian. She knew that Qin Wentian came from a foreign land, hence she naturally had to introduce some of the more important characters to Qin Wentian. These people were all people who could summon the wind and summon the rain in the Moon continent. Qin Wentian lightly nodded his head. His head was slightly lowered, but he was silently contemplating these outstanding characters in the Moon continent, especially those from the Pill Emperor Hall and the Hua clan. Zhan Chan from the Pill Emperor Hall, ranked number 11 in the Heavenly Fate rankings. This person exuded a scholarly aura, with an easygoing personality and was easy to get along with. Beside him was his beloved, an extremely beautiful maiden, Young Fan from the Star-Seizing Manor. His personality was more taciturn, and he rarely spoke. His countenance was always filled with hints of arrogance, as though no one dared to approach him. Zhao Lai's personality was as brazen as a raging inferno. As for Hua Feng, it was still impossible to tell for now. But there was no doubt that these Heavens Chosen all had their own pride. Even for the extremely calm Bai Lu Jing, Qin Wentian could sense the pride in his bones. Pride was born from self-confidence, and in Qin Wentian's bones, wasn't it the same as well? Hua Taishu and Hua Xiaoyun didn't appear. However, Bai Fei from the Pill Emperor Hall is here, but Qingqing isn't here. Qin Wentian felt a tinge of disappointment in his heart. Before he came here, he had also wondered if he would be able to meet Mo Qingcheng. Sadly, Mo Qingcheng wasn't here, but Bai Fei was. He recognized Bai Fei, yet Bai Fei didn't seem to notice him. Once Bai Fei told him that he and Mo Qingcheng were people from 2 different worlds, and told him not to have any wishful thinking. Now that he had also arrived at the Moon continent, if Bai Fei were to see him, what would she think of him? Most probably, she would think that Qin Wentian was an idiot. Since everyone has arrived, let's not waste any more time and directly enter the refinement grounds of the divine inscriptions. Beside Yang Chan, the sharp-looking middle-aged man indifferently spoke. Each of the 4 camps had a powerful expert leading them, and all of them nodded their heads in agreement. Instantly, a group of guards from the left and right arrived at an ancient gate in front of the ancient city. Both of their hands were condensed into strange ancient seals, and the seals they condensed were all different. After that, they blasted out, slamming into the ancient gate at the front of the ancient city. In an instant, rumbling sounds rang out as the ancient gate opened, and an ancient aura gushed out from within. After passing through this gate, one would be able to enter the inner parts of the ancient city. Similarly, this was also the destination of the guards, the refinement grounds of the divine inscriptions. Chapter 261. As the city gates opened, the eyes of the crowd gleamed with sharpness as they stepped out, stepping into the depths of the ancient city. What was even more shocking was that when they stepped in, the scenery was extremely similar to what they saw from the outside. From the outside it was an ancient city, and from the inside it was the same. Here there were many ancient palaces, as well as vast lands. The atmosphere was filled with a mysterious and ancient aura. But one thing was for sure, this place was different from the outside. Everyone could clearly sense that there was a terrifying celestial phenomenon energy in the air. Here there was a sky and there was a starry sky. Although it was daytime, there was a starry sky. Within the starry sky there was also starlight. At the center of the starlight, the crowd could see the illusory image of a majestic statue. He stood there suppressing this land, wanting to trample this land beneath his feet. That's a celestial phenomenon. Seems like the rumors are true. Upon seeing this scene, the same thought appeared in the hearts of the crowd. Those from the transcendent powers should have long since known about this, but the others only understood after entering. They could feel the power of the celestial phenomenon. The shadow of the statue standing in the air gave off a terrifying gravitational force. That was a gravitational celestial phenomenon. There were some who attempted to float up, yet to their horror, they discovered that they were unable to do so. They could only float a little higher, and if they tried to float any higher, the pressure from the celestial phenomenon would completely crush them. Celestial phenomenon? Bai Lujing murmured. After which, he added, seems like the celestial phenomenon was triggered the last time we entered. Before this, although the transcendent powers of the moon continent knew that this place was extraordinary, they didn't dare to do anything about it. But now, just based on the celestial phenomenon alone, we can confirm that there was once a celestial ascendant cultivating here. Bai Lu Yi, Qin Wentian, and the rest nodded their heads lightly. They had no idea what happened to those who entered the divine inscriptions back then. Even Hua Taishi was injured, but now they could confirm that this place was once a celestial ascendant. Divine inscriptionist grandmasters, please lead the way. At this moment, an old man with thick eyebrows stood beside Yang Fan. His eyes were pitch black, and just a single glance from him would cause people to sink into them. He gave off a sense of danger, and it was obvious that this old man was extremely powerful. That old man is Zhu Sha, a ranker on the heavenly fate rankings. Bai Lu Jing reminded Qin Wentian. After which, he patted Qin Wentian on his shoulders. Take care of little E. Yes. Qin Wentian nodded his head. He exchanged a glance with Bai Lu Yi before walking to the front of the crowd. The three elders of the Li clan and the young man from the demon cult also stepped forward. Little brother Qin, let's go. The eldest brother of the Li clan nodded at Qin Wentian, and then they all walked forward. The people from the Zhaixing house followed them. In the refinement grounds of divine inscriptions, there were many traps, and it was a tradition for divine inscriptionists to clear the way. Not only that, the experiences of the ancestors were useless to the later generations because the ones that could be deciphered had already been deciphered. As for the ones that could claim their lives, they would also die inside. Even if they had the information, they wouldn't be able to bring it out. The various factions advanced deeper into the ancient city and did not encounter any danger. Many places had been destroyed, and there were clear marks of broken runes. Clearly, this was done by someone before them. That towering platform seems to be the place where the constellation stood. At this moment, the gazes of the crowd shifted to a spacious platform that seemed to be a cultivation platform. Around it, there were also many broken stone chairs and pillars. The constellation in the air, as well as the blurry figure of the shadow, stood right in front of the cultivation platform. There's fluctuations of astral energy. Those from the four transcendent powers all sensed something as they sped over. You guys go up and take a look. Zhu Sha pointed to the towering platform as he spoke to Qin Wentian and the rest. Qin Wentian furrowed his brows. Zhu Sha's tone wasn't polite at all, as though he was ordering them around. These transcendent powers were basically treating them as tools for the refinement grounds of divine inscriptions. Let's go and take a look. Immediately, the three elders stepped forward. Qin Wentian's personality was more cautious, and he stood below the towering platform. There seemed to be traces of divine inscriptions revolving around the platform, giving Qin Wentian a strange feeling. "Uncle Li, wait a moment, there's something strange," Qin Wentian called out. When he tried to sense it, he could feel his heartbeat quickening. He could faintly sense that there was a mysterious energy here. As for what it was exactly, he had no way to sense it. The three elders turned their heads and glanced at Qin Wentian, after which they paused. "What did you see?" Qin Wentian lightly shook his head. "I don't know. But I can sense a terrifying energy moving around. In this kind of place, it's best to be more cautious." "You don't know." Zhu Sha frowned unhappily. "Since you can't sense it, why don't you go up and give it a try? Senior, this place is extremely dangerous. If we're not careful, we might be consigned to eternal damnation. Why don't we take a detour around the towering platform and explore other places?" Although Qin Wentian was unhappy in his heart, he still spoke in a heavy tone. "If what you said is true, wouldn't we have to take a detour if we encounter similar situations in the future? If that's the case, what's the point of coming here?" Zhu Sha frowned when he saw Qin Wentian doubting his words. "Since that's the case, I'll have to trouble Senior to take the lead." Qin Wentian gestured with his hand, not bothering to be polite at all. They didn't come here to beg the star-seizing manor. On the contrary, the star-seizing manor had to rely on them to do things, yet they still had such an attitude. This naturally caused Qin Wentian to feel extremely unhappy. "What did you say?" A cold intent gushed forth from Zhu Sha, yet the round-faced old man beside him interjected. "Forget it, little brother's words do make sense. We should be more cautious." Zhu Sha's personality was filled with a baleful aura, while this round-faced old man was much more tactful. They still needed to borrow the strength of a divine inscriptionist, and even if they wanted to settle scores, they could do so after they exited this place. "Humph, one of us has to go." Zhu Sha coldly snorted. "Forget it, third brother, you go." At this moment, the Li clan's eldest brother spoke to his third brother. "No way." Qin Wentian decisively rejected. His perception was extremely powerful, and at this moment the feeling of unease he felt grew stronger and stronger. Scrutinizing the towering platform, he could see the collapsed buildings, as well as the stone tablets and chairs. It was like a sacrificial altar, a place that belonged to the core of the Tao of divine inscriptions. If there was a divine inscription of slaughter here, the consequences would be extremely terrifying. "Uncle Li, you can't go," Qin Wentian resolutely stated. They came here with the star-seizing manor, but they weren't here to test the waters. This was a principle. If not, none of them would be able to leave this place alive. The Li clan's three brothers smiled. They could understand Qin Wentian's good intentions, but they didn't want to fall out with the star-seizing manor. At this moment, from the Skyember sect's side, someone walked up the towering platform, heading towards the center. "There's no problem." Seeing that the person was safe and sound, Zhu Sha's countenance turned even colder. "Boo!" Abruptly, a terrifying pressure bore down from the skies, as though a gigantic foot was stomping down. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, the body of that person was directly smashed into smithereens. His blood flowed on the towering platform and was actually absorbed by it. Such a scene caused the hearts of those who were hesitating to step up to throb. How dangerous! If it wasn't for the reminder from the star-seizing manor, they would have really stepped up. The hearts of the Li clan's three brothers pounded even faster. Drawing in a deep breath, they looked at Qin Wentian with gratitude. How dangerous! If they had stepped up, they would have died for sure. Zhu Sha's countenance sank, but he didn't say anything. Qin Wentian couldn't be bothered with him. His brows were tightly furrowed, and his heart was inexplicably pounding. "Careful, there's something strange going on." Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. As the sound of his voice faded, the earth suddenly trembled as though it was trembling. "It's really the central sacrificial altar." Qin Wentian stared at the towering platform in front of him, his heart pounding violently. The tempering exercise this time around might be different from the previous ones. "Wentian, little E, come back." Bailu Jing also sensed that something was wrong. Both Qin Wentian and Bailu E returned, while the participants from the various factions gathered together. Boom! Qin Wentian pressed his palms against the ground as he started inscribing divine inscriptions. At this moment, the earth trembled even more violently. Qin Wentian's palms trembled madly, and he could feel the movement of the inscriptions on the ground. "Big Brother Jing, help me break the ground apart," Qin Wentian commanded. Bailu Jing nodded his head, and after which a powerful aura gushed forth from him. With a wave of his hand, the earth crumbled apart, as though it was about to break apart. However, the crumbling earth actually started moving again, as though it was trying to reform itself. Don't let the earth gather. I need some time," Qin Wentian shouted. At this time the wind was raging, and the terrifying airflow began to spread throughout the entire space. No one would have expected such a situation. Those from the White Deer Institute surrounded Qin Wentian and Bai Lui in the middle, frenziedly slashing at the earth, while Qin Wentian slammed his palms against the ground, causing the runic outlines of the 8 trigrams to expand outwards. Sealing formation, Bai Lui instantly understood when she saw Qin Wentian's actions. Qin Wentian was inscribing divine inscriptions. Rumbling sounds rang out. In the sky, the constellation was still the same as before. That shadow stood tall in the heavens, while on the ground, a raging wind howled as destructive currents engulfed this entire space, causing the earth to shatter apart. Hold on. Bailu Jing roared. Incomparably sharp astral light revolved around his fingertips, and after which, his silhouette moved like the wind, slicing apart the earth around him. Boom! In the distance on the ground, numerous mountain peaks abruptly rose up, as though they had materialized out of thin air, growing from the depths of the earth, so tall that they pierced through the heavens. The ancient city was being destroyed unceasingly, as new lands were born. Only the shadow stood tall in the air, eternally standing there, changing the heavens and earth. The hearts of the spectators trembled. They knew that the tempering exercise this time around would be different from all the previous ones. Chapter 262. Qin Wentian frantically inscribed divine inscriptions. Finally, the resplendent divine inscriptions lit up, transforming into a gigantic 8 trigrams diagram. This 8 trigrams diagram enveloped this entire space, emitting a strange light. The squirming runes on the ground seemed to have been sealed, and the destructive energy gushing forth from them seemed to have weakened greatly. Inclining their heads, they stared at the surroundings, only to see the raging winds howling as the cracks in the earth closed up again and again. After a period of time, the destructive energy finally calmed down. Finally, the crowd could see their surroundings clearly. Their bodies were still at their original location, and the constellations in the air were still there. However, this place was no longer the ancient city, but a true cultivation ground instead. What a terrifying grand formation! Qin Wentian's heart trembled. This entire space had been transformed. Everything in the past was just a facade. The cultivation ground was extremely vast, and at the very front there was a gate. This gate was transparent, and one could clearly see the situation in the distance. Over there were ancient pine trees and ancient peaks, exuding a sense of tranquility. A great hall could be seen there, and within the great hall a statue could be seen. This statue was seated cross-legged, as though it had already passed away. In its hands there was an ancient scroll. Ascendant. Rays of sharpness gleamed in the eyes of the crowd. This place was the true cultivation ground of an ascendant. One person died in exchange for the appearance of an ascendant. It was worth it, too worth it. The people from the various camps exchanged mutual glances, their eyes filled with wariness and suspicion. Next, they would have to see who would be the first to obtain the treasure left behind by the ascendant. Gusts of wind gusted by as several silhouettes dashed out, rushing towards the gate. However, just as they took a few steps, the ground suddenly lit up. "Careful, there's a trap!" Person shouted. However, it was already too late. Those who dashed out were instantly enveloped by the flowing runes. Terrifying blades suddenly shot out from the ground, and one of them didn't pay attention to the ground. His body was directly penetrated through, and his death was too horrible to look at. There was another person who suffered an attack from a vicious dragon. Suddenly, a few vicious dragons appeared from the ground and lunged towards that person. That person's astral soul instantly erupted forth as he stabbed out with his finger, transforming into a terrifying blood-colored finger. The entire space around him was illuminated by a terrifying blood-colored light, as the body of the vicious dragon in front of him exploded. After which, sounds of crashing rang out as the dragon transformed into a rain of blood. At the same time, his left palm blasted out with a speed as fast as lightning. He didn't forget to rush forward, but the runes on the ground continued to shine brightly. A few terrifying arrows shot out like golden lightning, and there were also tentacles emerging from the ground, wrapping around his legs. A look of extreme fear appeared in the eyes of that person, and after that, he was devoured and killed. Those who rushed out were all dead. Their cultivation bases were all at the 9th level of Yuanfu, and their mandates were all extremely powerful. One step, one kill. The hearts of the spectators trembled. They had personally witnessed the deaths of those people, yet they didn't dare to step out to save them. In fact, they didn't even dare to casually move their feet. The slightest movement might trigger a destructive attack from the divine inscriptions. This is even more dangerous compared to the previous trials. It was none other than an old man from the Pill Emperor Hall. He then continued, "Back then I was here as well. There are many traps in the ancient city, but not all of them are at the peak of the 3rd ranked. We can see the silhouettes of the ascendant, yet every step we take is filled with killing intent. I absolutely believe that this is the true Dao cultivation grounds of an ascendant." The spectators nodded in agreement. This was much more dangerous compared to the previous trials. One step, one kill. Although it's so close, it feels like it's so far away. It's as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Is there any solution? Zhao Lai from the Skyember sect asked in a loud voice. Earlier, he had almost stepped out. He was wondering if he would be able to defend against those destructive attacks if he stepped out. In the past, there were only 2 ways to deal with divine inscriptions. First, use your overwhelming strength to force your way through. Second, use a divine inscriptionist to decipher the trap step by step. But now, regardless of which method we use, the difficulty is much higher compared to before. The danger is 10 times, 100 times greater. The old man who had stepped into the Dao cultivation grounds before spoke, his words causing the countenances of the spectators to turn heavy. Since this was the case, nobody dared to barge in recklessly. Esteemed Grandmasters, it's time for you all to perform. At this moment, an old man from the Skyember sect spoke, his words causing the countenances of the divine inscriptionists to change. Such a scene was something they didn't wish to see. We need some time to sense it, the divine inscriptionist from the Skyember sect replied. Right? The representatives of the various powers were all conversing with the divine inscriptionists. Over at the star-seizing manor, Qin Wentian and the rest were standing within a ceiling formation, isolated from the rest of the world. They were the ones who were the least affected by the tempest earlier. Yang Fan and the rest turned their gazes onto Qin Wentian. Yang Fan spoke, "The White Deer Institute obtained first place in the exchange. Now we need all of you to contribute." "I'll do my best." Qin Wentian looked at Yang Fan as he replied. Yang Fan lightly nodded his head, before turning his gaze onto the 3 elders of the Li clan and the young man from the demon cult. "Whoever has a solution to this trap, the star-seizing manor will reward you handsomely." The few of them nodded their heads. Their hearts were as clear as a mirror. Qin Wentian was very polite when he needed to make use of them. Qin Wentian closed his eyes, quietly sensing everything in this space. Although some of the divine inscriptions were extremely profound, he could still sense them. Back then when Grandmaster Fenrir asked them to locate the divine inscriptions, it was the same for him. However, the divine inscriptions here were clearly incomparable to the ones Grandmaster Fenrir had given them back then. Releasing his heart sense, Qin Wentian's heart pounded violently. He saw a terrifying scene before him. Every step was filled with killing intent, and every step was filled with offensive divine inscriptions. All of them were 3rd-ranked divine inscriptions. If that was the case, it wouldn't be a problem for the Grandmasters here today. They would still be able to decipher the divine inscriptions. What truly shocked Qin Wentian was that these divine inscriptions were all interlinked with each other. Even if one destroyed a segment, it wouldn't affect the other segments of the divine inscriptions in the surroundings. These divine inscriptions weren't individual divine inscriptions, but rather they were a complete entity. The divine inscriptions in this entire space were a single entity, and the slightest change would affect the rest. If he walked out, he could slowly decipher the divine inscriptions. But while he was deciphering the divine inscriptions, the Grandmaster would have already been killed by the other divine inscriptions. How could he continue? Although the perception of the other Grandmasters couldn't be compared to Qin Wentian, after some time, their countenances gradually changed. One of them spoke. There's no way to decipher the divine inscriptions. No way to decipher it? The countenances of many sank. If there was no way to decipher the divine inscriptions, they could only force their way through. They had already seen the ending of those who tried to decipher the divine inscriptions. All of them died. Zhu Sha turned his gaze onto Qin Wentian, only to see Qin Wentian opening his eyes. Your perception of divine inscriptions is the strongest here. How long do you need to decipher it? Very difficult, I have no confidence. Qin Wentian replied. Zhu Sha frowned. I'll give you 7 days. After speaking, he closed his eyes. 7 days to him was already a very long time. If Qin Wentian couldn't decipher the divine inscriptions, he could only force his way through. A cold light flashed in Qin Wentian's eyes, but he didn't say anything as he continued to comprehend the divine inscriptions. Leaving aside the star-seizing manner, if he wanted to continue forward, he would have to decipher the divine inscriptions first. No matter how difficult it was, he had to do it. Time flowed by, nobody dared to make any reckless moves. Qin Wentian didn't try to decipher the divine inscriptions one by one. He wanted to imprint the complete picture of this entire space into his mind. He believed that if he studied the divine inscriptions one by one, it would be impossible to decipher the divine inscriptions one by one. In that case, there was only one path left. In Qin Wentian's perception, the picture in his mind gradually grew clearer and clearer, becoming more and more complete. When he focused his attention on the picture, Qin Wentian's heart involuntarily trembled. He saw a terrifying divine eagle. This divine eagle wanted to spread its wings and soar into the sky, rushing straight into the 9 heavens, soaring straight into the sky. It inclined its head, its eyes gleaming with sharpness, as though it was filled with unwillingness. Because it couldn't soar into the skies, it couldn't do it. Above it, there was a silhouette stomping down on the ground, suppressing it. It wanted to soar into the skies, yet it couldn't. Hence, its baleful aura towered up into the skies, wanting to kill all those who obstructed it. Those who trampled on it all had to die. Such an intent caused Qin Wentian's heart to tremble. His eyes opened as he stared at the blurry silhouette in the air. Under the suppression of an ascendant, the divine eagle couldn't soar into the skies. How could they break it? Not only was the divine eagle suppressed, they were also unable to soar into the skies, unable to traverse through space. In the blink of an eye, 7 days passed. Still not a single person moved. Esteemed Grandmasters, is there still no way to decipher it? Zhao Lai's personality was more hot-tempered. During these few days he would ask the same question every day, but the answer he got was always a negative one. This old man is useless. I have no way to decipher it. An old man faintly spoke. Since we can't decipher it, we can only barge our way through? Zhao Lai asked. Yes. That old man nodded. Fine. Now go and barge your way through. Zhao Lai spoke to the old man, his tone extremely unfriendly, causing the old man to furrow his brows. This old man's strength is insufficient. I'm afraid I won't be able to barge through. Since this is the case, what's the point of having you around? Terrifying flames erupted from Zhao Lai's body. Abruptly, he slashed out with his palms as a fiery saber light flashed. The terrifying heat of the saber light sliced through the air, directly cleaving the body of the old man into 2 halves. This scene stunned the other divine inscriptionists present, only to see Zhao Lai turning his gaze onto the others as he icily asked, Are you guys unable to decipher it as well? The countenances of the other divine inscriptionists turned incredibly unsightly as they replied, Let's try. Zhao Lai nodded his head as he continued, Shouldn't the divine inscriptionists you guys have invited act as well? Those from the Pill Emperor Hall, Hua Clan and Star-Seizing Manor all turned their gazes onto the divine inscriptionists of their respective camps, only to see Zhu Sha's gaze shifting onto Qin Wentian as he stated, The 7 days are up. Qin Wentian opened his eyes. I still need more time. There's no more time. I've said it before, if we can't decipher it after 7 days, we can only barge our way through. Zhu Sha faintly stated. You've also seen the situation in the Skyember sect. Zhu Sha didn't continue speaking, but everyone understood. Chapter 263. Qin Wentian stared at Zhu Sha. Evidently, Zhu Sha wanted them, the divine inscriptionists, to be the first to attempt it. Just like what Zhao Lai had said, since they couldn't decipher it, what was the point of having divine inscriptionists? In the eyes of these transcendent powers, the value of divine inscriptionists was to be used. They themselves were very clear of this point, but weren't they also using these transcendent powers to protect them as they advanced? They deciphered the divine inscriptions while these transcendent powers defended against any unexpected dangers. However, the current situation was something that divine inscriptionists had never experienced before. They couldn't decipher the divine inscriptions, and not only could they not decipher it, they were also trapped here. The moment they attempted to decipher the divine inscriptions, the result would be death. Such a situation caused the hidden conflict between both sides to erupt. Those transcendent powers wanted to force them to decipher the divine inscriptions. If they couldn't, they would die. Qin Wentian stared at Zhu Sha, and upon seeing the coldness in Zhu Sha's eyes, he spoke. I've already deduced some clues. If you want me to decipher the divine inscriptions now, the result would be death. After that, Senior would have to force your way through. If you give me some more time, there might still be a glimmer of hope. Qin Wentian's voice was extremely calm. There was no hint of anger in it. The him now had long since learned how to conceal his emotions, and wouldn't easily reveal his inner thoughts. Zhu Sha furrowed his brows, only to hear Yang Fan interjecting. Give him some more time. I'll give you 3 more days, Zhu Sha emotionlessly stated to Qin Wentian. He knew that his attitude would cause Qin Wentian to hate him. However, he didn't care. Qin Wentian was merely a powerful third-rank divine inscriptionist. Could it be that he would slowly wait for him to finish inscribing the divine inscriptions during the battle? Not only that, Qin Wentian wouldn't even have the guts to do so. He could only allow himself to be restrained by them. Zhao Lai pondered as he stared at the situation at the star-seizing manor. He was wondering if they should wait a little longer. The Hua clan and Pill Emperor Hall also turned their gazes over, their gazes landing on Qin Wentian. The star-seizing manor seemed to regard this person highly. Qin Wentian's proficiency in divine inscriptions should be the highest among them. Among the crowd from the Pill Emperor Hall, Bai Fei also saw Qin Wentian. She couldn't help but have a bewildered expression on her face. She could faintly sense that Qin Wentian was extremely familiar, as though she knew him. This feeling was extremely intense, yet she couldn't remember when she met him. It had been more than half a year since she met Qin Wentian. In this half a year, Qin Wentian had shed away his original childishness and was even more handsome compared to before. In addition to his longer black hair, as well as the change in his demeanor, she wasn't able to recognize him for a short period of time. Qin Wentian's transformation was too great, especially in the aspect of his demeanor. Bai Fei wasn't very familiar with Qin Wentian from the start. In her eyes, Qin Wentian was merely a minor character from a small country. She had never seriously scrutinized Qin Wentian's existence before. It was only normal that she couldn't recognize the current Qin Wentian with a single glance. Let's wait for another 3 days. Zhao Lai spoke. Although he had a fiery temper, he knew that if they were to force their way through, they would suffer heavy casualties. Even he himself didn't have absolute confidence that he would be able to survive. Now they could only wait. Is there really a way? Bai Lui whispered to Qin Wentian. Her attainments in the Tao of divine inscriptions weren't bad, but the divine inscriptions in front of her left her completely helpless. She couldn't see through them at all. Let me think about it carefully. Qin Wentian stared at the shadow in the air. He had every reason to believe that since the Ascendant had laid down this trap, it wouldn't be a dead end. There must be a way to break it. This was a test for the future generations. It was just that this test was too difficult, and if one failed to pass, they would have to pay with their lives. Many people were already growing impatient. On the 3rd day, Zhu Sha glanced at Qin Wentian as he stated, "Time's up." Qin Wentian slowly opened his eyes as he stated to Zhu Sha, "I have no way to break the formation, but I can try to walk through it." However, my current strength isn't sufficient, and I need those from the star-seizing manor to cooperate with me. A sharp light flashed in Zhu Sha's eyes. Since they couldn't break the formation, they had to follow him? Didn't that mean that they would have to follow Qin Wentian and take the risk? How many people do you need? Zhu Sha asked. At least 10, Qin Wentian replied. Since you are someone invited by the White Deer Institute, it's more than enough to let those from the institute follow you, Zhu Sha indifferently stated. Qin Wentian furrowed his brows, but his expression returned to normal in an instant. However, this instant movement of his was captured by Zhu Sha. Don't worry, the people from the White Deer Institute are all elites. You should be more familiar with them. Why are you worried that their strength isn't sufficient? Zhu Sha continued. Qin Wentian furrowed his brows. Bai Lu Jing, what do you think of this risk? Bai Lu Jing couldn't help but feel his heart stirring when he heard the way Qin Wentian addressed him. Before this, Qin Wentian was also extremely polite to him, calling him Big Brother Jing. That's the only way. Bai Lu Jing understood Qin Wentian's meaning, as he nodded his head. Fine, I can't guarantee that we will be able to pass. Let's leave it to fate. All of you follow me closely. You must be fast, use your fastest speed to rush over. Not only must you be fast, every step you take, use your strongest suppressive force, stomping on the ground. Qin Wentian explained to Bai Lu Jing and the rest. Just these 2 points, speed and strength. The fastest speed and the strongest suppressive force. The countenances of the crowd flickered. Maintaining a fast speed while exerting strength in every step was extremely difficult. After all, if they wanted to be fast, their steps had to be light and graceful, floating in the air. But if they wanted to exert strength in every step, it would be extremely difficult. Bai Lu Jing nodded his head. We will do our best. Not our best, but we must do it. If not, we might all die. Qin Wentian's countenance was solemn. Bai Lu Jing and the rest all had solemn expressions on their faces as they nodded their heads seriously. Zhu Sha, on the other hand, was staring at Qin Wentian. He wanted to see what method Qin Wentian would use to pass through. No matter what, with Qin Wentian as the guide, they could only wait and see the results. Let's line up properly. Me and Bai Lui will be in the middle, Bai Lu Jing will be behind me, and the rest will be on my left and right. In this way, you guys can make up for our lack of strength. Qin Wentian arranged their positions as the crowd drew in a deep breath. Okay, let's move out. Qin Wentian similarly drew in a deep breath. The 12 of them all exuded a tyrannical aura, and many of them even had astral wings on their backs. Let's go. Qin Wentian stepped out, and the rest of them followed suit. With a thunderous boom, the divine inscriptions below started to move violently. Boom! Qin Wentian and the rest stepped out once more, with incredible speed and strength. Their steps caused the ground to tremble violently, and the turbulent air currents seemed to be suppressed, causing their momentum to weaken. He's suppressing the divine inscriptions below. The gazes of the crowd froze. This fellow was truly audacious to think of such a method. Only to see that Qin Wentian and the rest were as fast as lightning, and their steps were strangely synchronized, following Qin Wentian's footsteps. In all directions, the terrifying divine inscriptions wanted to erupt forth, but the instant their footsteps landed on the ground, the divine inscriptions would instantly weaken, as though they were being suppressed. However, the divine inscriptions from afar started to flow towards them, as the terrifying attacks started to converge towards them. Quick! Qin Wentian roared, ignoring all the incoming divine inscriptions. They continued advancing, and the divine inscriptions in front of them instantly slowed down. Qin Wentian and the rest directly dashed into the divine inscriptions, forcefully suppressing the incoming divine inscriptions. In the blink of an eye, the crowd discovered that Qin Wentian and the rest had already arrived in front of them. Although it was dangerous, their speed was simply too fast. With a howl of rage, they dashed towards the divine inscriptions at the same time. Behind them, the terrifying divine inscriptions frenziedly chased after them. Over there was an incomparably sharp lightning arrow. Not good. The countenances of Qin Wentian and the rest drastically changed. The divine inscriptions behind them hadn't been suppressed, and had actually caught up to them. You guys leave. An old man abruptly halted his steps. He turned, and the light from his astral soul transformed into a gigantic ancient shield. His white hair fluttered in the wind as he blasted out a terrifying attack. Rumbling sounds of collision rang out. The ferocious converging attacks of divine inscriptions were forcibly blocked by Qin Wentian. But at this moment, the attacks of divine inscriptions on his left and right simultaneously swept over, wanting to engulf him. Pucci! A light sound rang out. The old man's head was penetrated, and his entire body was swallowed whole. These divine inscriptions were like primordial beasts, too terrifying. Uncle Zhong. Bai Lu Jing's countenance stiffened. With a roar, they directly dashed out of the divine inscriptions, vanishing from this space. Success! Abruptly, the countenances of the people in this space froze, as their eyes gleamed with sharpness. Those people had exited the divine inscriptions. Let's move out, we'll do the same as them. Yang Fan abruptly stood up, as Zhu Sha nodded his head. Now was undoubtedly the most suitable time. They could still catch up to Qin Wentian. That fellow's divine inscriptions were extremely powerful, and if there were any more divine inscriptions in front of them, they could continue to make use of them. Yang Fan led the members of the star-seizing manor into a formation similar to Qin Wentian's, and at the same time, an even more terrifying pressure bore down on the ground. But very quickly, they discovered that things weren't as easy as they had imagined. When they took their second step, the entire space seemed to be tilting as a terrifying pressure bore down on them. Rush over. A terrifying aura gushed forth from Yang Fan, as the group of them continued rushing forward. Very quickly, they met with an unimaginable resistance. The destructive energy unceasingly devoured their lives, and although they continued to advance, 7 of their members had already fallen before they even reached the exit. These people were all at the peak of Yuanfu. Bastard! Zhu Sha roared in rage. The baleful aura radiating from him towered up into the skies as he continued advancing. He seemed to have realized that when Qin Wentian told them to cooperate, it was only to provoke them. His true purpose was never to travel together with them, but to travel together with those from the White Deer Institute. Qin Wentian's group had an easier time advancing, and only one of their members had fallen. Finally, when Zhu Sha and his group passed through the Divine Inscriptions Gate, a total of 11 members from the star-seizing manor had fallen. It could be said that their ending was extremely tragic. The 3 old men from the Li clan opened their eyes, staring at the disappearing silhouettes as they calmly stated, "It's not wise to offend a grandmaster in the refinement grounds." The 3 old men from the Li clan knew very well that the path Qin Wentian had chosen was the most perfect one. Qin Wentian's calm voice caused the hearts of those from the other transcendent powers to pound. Although Qin Wentian hadn't intentionally targeted the star-seizing manor, and it could even be said that this had nothing to do with him, the star-seizing manor had paid a terrible price for their arrogance. Just think about it, if Qin Wentian had brought them out, would they still be in such a miserable state? Chapter 264. The experts from the Watermoon Mountain Villa didn't speak ill of the Li clan's 3 brothers. After all, the Li clan's 3 brothers were invited by them. Even if it was just for the sake of face, they wouldn't go overboard. Not only that, the star-seizing manor was the one to be the villain. Why would they want to offend them? Grandmaster Li, what do you think? The experts from the Watermoon Mountain Villa turned to the Li clan's 3 brothers. Old Firstly spoke, "From what I can see, the divine inscriptions seem to want to soar upwards. Little brother Qin's perception is stronger. He would definitely be able to see things more clearly than me. Hence, he chose to suppress the divine inscriptions and advanced at an extremely fast speed." Evidently, he understood that they wouldn't be able to suppress the divine inscriptions with their strength. The Li clan's 3 brothers had extremely high attainments in the Tao of divine inscriptions. Their deductions were not far from the truth. Qin Wentian also knew that with him taking the lead, the other grandmasters would be able to see through the divine inscriptions. However, with the attitude of the star-seizing manor earlier, no one warned them. Even the 3 brothers from the Li clan chose to keep their mouths shut. What did the life and death of the star-seizing manor have to do with them? Grandmaster Li, do you have a suitable path in mind? The experts from the Watermoon Mountain Villa asked. "I will choose carefully. Everyone from the demon cult, let's go together. The more people there are, the more strength there is. We will be able to lessen the burden and suppress the divine inscriptionists." Old Li glanced at the experts from the demon cult. At the same time, Zhao Lai spoke to the divine inscriptionist from the Skyember sect. Grandmaster's I Zhao Lai was disrespectful earlier. I hope you won't take offense. As long as you can lead us safely through, I Zhao will definitely reward you. The divine inscriptionist didn't say anything. They knew that Zhao Lai was forced by the circumstances, but how could they say no? Even if Zhao Lai was extremely tyrannical and killed one of their divine inscriptionists, Zhao Lai wouldn't spare them even if they said no. Not only that, it was impossible for them to shake off the Skyember sect. With Qin Wentian taking the lead, the others all followed suit. With the divine inscriptionists in the middle leading the way, the experts on the left and right flanks of the divine inscriptionist grandmaster, all of them stepped into the spatial gate that was filled with killing intent. Of course, even though they had managed to do so, they had still suffered heavy losses. Not a single force had managed to escape unscathed. More than 200 people from the four forces had come to this trial ground, but in this space alone, a total of 80 people had died. It could be said to be terrifying. Ever since the discovery of the refinement grounds of divine inscriptions, this was the first time that they had encountered such a great opportunity. But at the same time, it was also the most dangerous. If they were not careful, they might lose their lives. This caused the hearts of the survivors to feel heavy, and they didn't dare to be careless. When Qin Wentian stepped through the door, he was surprised to find that the pine trees, the ancient peaks, the hall, and the statues were still in front of him. He could see them, but he couldn't touch them. There was no one around him. Not a single person. Bailu Jing, Bailu Yi, as well as those from the White Deer Institute, all vanished from his sight. That door gives off a feeling of spatial disorder. It's a spatial formation. The moment Qin Wentian stepped through the door, he clearly sensed a wisp of spatial energy. Spatial divine inscriptions, Qin Wentian had seen them before in the secret manual Bailu Yi had given him. Spatial divine inscriptions, they contained the power of spatial laws. His heart pounded wildly. In front of him, a vast expanse of space appeared. There were mountains, rivers, and lakes. Qin Wentian understood that he was currently in the middle of a spatial formation. Not only him, but everyone who passed through the door would also be trapped within this formation. Inclining his head, he stared at the void. That statue was still there, hovering in the air. It was as though no matter where they went, this earth-suppressing statue would always be there, preventing them from flying. This distance seems so close, but how far is it? Qin Wentian's gaze shifted to the pine trees and ancient peaks in front of him, as a sense of longing appeared in his heart. From this dangerous setup, one could see how terrifying the strength of the Ascendant was. He even knew how to use spatial formations. The power of spatial divine inscriptions was definitely a rare treasure. Not only that, could it be that the Ascendant had left behind this trial ground for no reason? There was a high possibility that the Ascendant had left behind an inheritance here, and was choosing a successor for himself. Stepping out, Qin Wentian advanced forward. However, before he could even take 100 steps, he halted again. After which, with a flick of his finger, a beam of astral light slammed into the ground in front of him. Instantly, a thunderous rumbling sound echoed out as a terrifying destructive sword light tore through space, vanishing from sight. Only then did Qin Wentian continue forward. On the way, he encountered many dangers. Some of the traps directly blocked his path, and if he didn't dispel them, he wouldn't be able to advance any further. This made Qin Wentian understand that if he wanted to pass this trial, he either had to have an extremely high level of attainment in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions, or he had to be extremely powerful. But of course, if he had both, he would definitely be the successor that the Ascendant wanted to see the most. The traps are getting stronger and stronger. They're already strong enough to kill peak-level Yuanfu experts. Qin Wentian sat on a hillside, his entire body enveloped by powerful divine inscriptions. Only after the traps were destroyed did he stand up and continue forward. He couldn't help but to sigh in his heart. Even with his attainment in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions, he still had to proceed with caution, not daring to be the slightest bit careless. Qin Wentian relied on his high level of attainment in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions to advance. Finally, at this moment, he saw a silhouette not far away from him. This person was a middle-aged man clad in the robes of the Hua clan. His eyes were sinister, and when he stared at Qin Wentian, it caused Qin Wentian to feel a chill run down his spine. Grandmaster Qin. This person had already noticed Qin Wentian earlier, and upon seeing Qin Wentian, he immediately rushed over. After which, he smiled. Grandmaster Qin, can we travel together? Someone from the Hua clan. Qin Wentian glanced at the long robes the middle-aged man was wearing. His countenance didn't change as he lightly nodded his head. Sure. In that case, please. The middle-aged man smiled. Qin Wentian glanced at the middle-aged man as he smiled. Senior's strength is higher than mine. Please move first. If there's any danger, I will naturally warn Senior. Grandmaster Qin is too polite. Given Grandmaster Qin's attainments in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions, how can a commoner like me be compared to you? I humbly request Grandmaster Qin to lead the way. The middle-aged man was extremely polite, as though he had something good to share with Qin Wentian. Since this is the case, I will move first. If there's anything I need Senior's help with, I hope Senior won't take offense. Qin Wentian's tone was similarly polite. Sure. The middle-aged man nodded. That's only natural. Qin Wentian didn't say anything else, and continued on his way. Right now, these people all treated divine inscriptionists as treasures. Since this middle-aged man from the Hua clan encountered Qin Wentian, how could he let him off? Qin Wentian decisively agreed because he knew that even if he didn't want to, he had no choice but to agree. He could see that the clothes of this middle-aged man from the Hua clan were torn and tattered. Evidently, the journey here wasn't easy. How could Qin Wentian spare him? The two of them continued on their way, and in the blink of an eye, over 10 days passed. The pine trees and ancient peaks were still the same, and the statues in the Great Hall were eternal. Yet they continued on, as though there was no end to this path. Grandmaster, why did we travel such a long distance? Isn't this a waste of time? The middle-aged man spoke to Qin Wentian. Senior, if you don't feel at ease, you can move first. Qin Wentian casually replied. I'm just speaking casually. Grandmaster, please don't take offense. The middle-aged man laughed. In truth, during these 10 days, although Qin Wentian would occasionally ask for his help, it was much easier than him moving alone. The dangers ahead were still unknown. How could he let Qin Wentian go first? Most likely, the others would still be struggling to move forward in this formation. In fact, it was just as he had expected. Although the dangers in this formation were not as concentrated as before, and were only concentrated in one area, this kind of never-ending danger was still impossible to guard against. Bai Lui was currently in a precarious situation. She had encountered an expert from the star-seizing manner in the formation. Although Bai Lui's attainment in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions couldn't be compared to Qin Wentian, she was, after all, an extremely powerful divine inscriptionist. How could the expert from the star-seizing manner spare her? Senior, the traps ahead are getting more and more dangerous. I'm afraid that even if we work together, we won't be able to advance any further. Bai Lui's countenance was somewhat haggard as she spoke to the black-robed old man. This old man didn't like to speak, exuding a gloomy aura. After hearing Bai Lui's words, he didn't say anything. Instead, his eyes roamed over Bai Lui's pure countenance, as well as her towering peaks, causing her countenance to turn even paler as she felt extremely embarrassed. Gritting her teeth, she could only brace herself and continue moving forward. The gray-robed old man stared at Bai Lui's back. That voluptuous figure of hers was exceptionally alluring, and a nefarious fire flickered in his eyes. If one were to say that Bai Lui's luck was bad, then Bai Fei's was even worse. She had accompanied Zhang Chen here, and because her master was Luo He, the people from the Pill Emperor Hall had always taken care of her. Who would have thought that she would be thrown into such a formation? Not only that, she didn't encounter anyone from the Pill Emperor Hall, but instead, an expert from the Sky Ember sect. That person looked to be about 26 or 27 years of age, but his actual age was over 30. His eyes were filled with evil, and he wanted Bai Fei to lead the way for him. With Bai Fei's strength, how could she possibly lead the way? If it weren't for her good luck, she would have already died in the formation. But this young man was truly powerful. He would always save her every time. Along the way, Bai Fei's robes were tattered, her shoulders were exposed, and even her fair skin was exposed. Such a hazy beauty would cause evil thoughts to rise in the hearts of men. Miss Bai, why don't we find a better place to enjoy ourselves? That way, you won't die in this formation before you've even had the chance to enjoy a man." The young man laughed evilly, teasing Bai Fei. If he really wanted to do something to her, she wouldn't be able to stop him. But the young man obviously couldn't bear to part with such a precious stone. He knew what was more important, and so he didn't make a move on Bai Fei. But if things continued like this, Bai Fei knew that she would either die in the formation, or become his plaything. As for Zhan Chan, Zhao Lai, Hua Feng, Bai Lu Jing, Zhu Sha, and the other rankers on the Heavenly Fate rankings, they advanced at an extremely fast speed, destroying everything in their path. But even so, they were all in a sorry state, and there were a few times where they encountered danger. This formation was extremely difficult to deal with. Chapter 265. Qin Wentian and the middle-aged man continued advancing. Although this space was filled with danger, there would eventually be an end to it. At most they would have to spend more time. If they met with danger that they had no confidence in, they would rather take a detour. And just as Qin Wentian took another detour, he saw a silhouette ahead of him. Involuntarily, Qin Wentian halted his steps. His silhouette flickered as he appeared beside the puppet. This puppet belonged to Bai Lu Yi. The puppet blinked at Qin Wentian, before pointing a finger in the distance, as though gesturing something. This caused Qin Wentian's eyes to narrow as he asked, "You're being held hostage?" The puppet nodded its head. Momentarily, Qin Wentian's heart tightened as he commanded, "Bring me there." "Grandmaster Qin." Just as Qin Wentian was about to leave with the puppet, the middle-aged man walked up to him. "Grandmaster Qin, what's wrong? Let's continue on our way. Senior, I have a friend who encountered some difficulties. Why don't we go together? With Senior's strength you might be able to help," Qin Wentian replied. However, the middle-aged man merely laughed. Did Qin Wentian treat him as a hired thug? For those who came here and hadn't died yet, it was highly likely that they weren't simple characters. Which one of them didn't originate from a transcendent power? Perhaps they were all experts from a transcendent power like him. He didn't like this at all. "Grandmaster Qin, it's best if you don't meddle in other people's business." The middle-aged man laughed, causing Qin Wentian to finally furrow his brows. But at this moment a raging wind gusted by. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed, only to see the middle-aged man instantly appearing in front of the puppet. A terrifying palm imprint slammed downwards, the terrifying might capable of crushing everything. Crackling sounds rang out as Qin Wentian saw that the puppet was directly smashed into smithereens. Its remains scattered across the ground. Qin Wentian's countenance abruptly changed. After which, the middle-aged man stared at him as his gaze turned sharp. "Grandmaster, since this is the case, you can lead the way with peace of mind." The Qin Wentian right now was a naked threat. Not only that, he had even destroyed Bai Lu Yi's puppet. After pondering for a moment, Qin Wentian nodded, then turned around and continued to walk forward. The middle-aged man's eyes flashed, and he quietly followed behind him, keeping a certain distance. He still remembered the painful lesson of the star-seizing manner. He could not give Qin Wentian a chance to borrow the power of the divine inscriptions to deal with him. The middle-aged man became much more cautious. Not only did he follow closely behind Qin Wentian, he even rejected Qin Wentian's requests to decipher the divine inscriptions. He only stood behind and watched Qin Wentian. Luckily, Qin Wentian didn't lie to him. Every time a divine inscription trap would appear. Grand formation. At this moment, Qin Wentian halted his steps as he stared ahead. In front of him there were two mountain peaks on both sides. The wide pathway seemed to be unobstructed, but Qin Wentian could sense the aura of a grand formation. The middle-aged man abruptly waved his palm, blasting it towards Qin Wentian. At the instant his attack landed on the ground, a hurricane of destruction abruptly manifested as terrifying currents of air flowed. This caused the middle-aged man to laugh. "Grandmaster is truly powerful. Since you can see through it, please break the formation. The exit shouldn't be too far away." As he spoke, a look of anticipation flashed in his eyes. He could faintly sense that the exit was getting closer and closer. "Senior, this grand formation is extremely powerful. If Senior doesn't act, I'm afraid it'll be extremely difficult to break it." Qin Wentian frowned. "I believe in Grandmaster." The middle-aged man laughed, as he clasped his hands behind his back. In that case, I'm afraid we'll have to delay for a little longer. Qin Wentian stopped and started inscribing divine inscriptions. Numerous divine inscriptions appeared, as a faint pressure gushed forth. The middle-aged man stared at Qin Wentian's every movement. With a flicker of his silhouette, he actually appeared in front of Qin Wentian. A destructive wind circulated around his palms, as his palms turned into a fiery red. A terrifying aura enveloped Qin Wentian, as though he could kill Qin Wentian at any moment. Qin Wentian didn't reply. He continued inscribing divine inscriptions in silence. After a period of time, he started to activate the divine inscriptions to attack the grand formation in front of him, advancing bit by bit. The middle-aged man followed closely behind him, only a step away from Qin Wentian. He could kill Qin Wentian with a single wave of his hand. "Senior, there's no need to be so cautious." Qin Wentian laughed. After which, he turned his head and stared behind the middle-aged man as he coldly asked, "Who are you?" The middle-aged man saw Qin Wentian's countenance changing, yet he didn't move. He merely laughed. "Grandmaster, it's best if you don't play any tricks." However, Qin Wentian's countenance abruptly changed. He stomped on the ground as a terrifying sharpness gushed forth from behind the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man's countenance drastically changed as he abruptly turned around. At the same time, his left hand stretched out, grabbing towards Qin Wentian's head. Even if there really was someone, he had to capture Qin Wentian. However, at the instant he turned his head, Qin Wentian's body had already sunk into the ground. At the instant the divine inscriptions flowed, the ground Qin Wentian was standing on instantly caved in. Qin Wentian's body sank downwards as a terrifying sharp sword appeared in his hands, directly stabbing towards the middle-aged man. The moment the middle-aged man turned his head, he knew that he had been tricked. Indeed, as he had expected, there was no one here. However, another terrifying sword screen was exploding towards him. The flaming palms blasted out in a frenzy. He felt a sharp pain in his legs as he screamed in agony. Both of his legs were directly cut off by the sharp swords. The terrifying sword screen forced his body to retreat backwards, drifting over the top of Qin Wentian's head. A terrifying suppressive force came from the void. His severed legs touched the ground as a destructive airflow began to wreak havoc. That was the matrix that Qin Wentian had yet to break. "Save me!" The middle-aged man screamed in agony. But at this moment, Qin Wentian had already sunk into the ground. He didn't dare to poke his head out. In order to kill the middle-aged man, he had also taken a great risk. If he had been a moment slower, the middle-aged man's attack would have blasted him into the matrix and he would have died. But if he didn't take such a risk, he wouldn't be able to kill the middle-aged man. He had no other choice. When everything calmed down, Qin Wentian emerged from the ground. He coldly glanced at the location where the middle-aged man had been. Not even his bones were left. Turning, Qin Wentian sped away, his eyes still flickering with a cold light. Not long after, Qin Wentian returned to the location where the puppet was destroyed. He believed that since Bai Lui had met him here, she should have known that he would find a way to wait for her here. Hence, Qin Wentian had prepared a grand divine inscription formation here, waiting for Bai Lui's arrival. However, what made Qin Wentian surprised was that Bai Fei had already arrived before Bai Lui. Not only that, she was in a sorry state. Behind her, there was a young man exuding a sinister aura. His robes were also covered with dust, and there were even a few injuries on his body. It was evident that he had suffered greatly. "It's him." Upon seeing Qin Wentian, Bai Fei's eyes flickered. The sinister young man also noticed Qin Wentian, and he couldn't help but have an expression of interest on his face. "Let's go quickly," the sinister young man spoke to Bai Fei, and an instant later, he arrived in front of Qin Wentian. "Sir, why aren't you in a hurry?" The sinister young man smiled at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian swept a glance at Bai Fei. At this moment, Bai Fei's clothes were barely covering her body, and many parts of her body were exposed. Below her fair shoulders, her ample bosom could be faintly seen, causing the hearts of men to be filled with lustful thoughts. Not only that, at this moment she looked extremely haggard, as though she had been forced to do this. Bai Fei gritted her teeth as her countenance turned even more unsightly when she saw the look in Qin Wentian's eyes. Hee, if you like it, I can give it to you. This might be the first time a beauty from the Pill Emperor Hall. The sinister young man laughed. Qin Wentian glanced at him as he replied, I still have matters to attend to. Please do as you please. The sinister young man continued smiling. It wasn't easy for him to meet such a powerful divine inscriptionist, and this divine inscriptionist seemed to be the strongest in the star-seizing manner. How could he bear to give up? Sir, please follow me. I will definitely not mistreat you, the sinister young man continued. Bai Fei stared at Qin Wentian. Have we met before? At this moment when she looked at Qin Wentian, although he was exuding a cold aura, the sense of familiarity grew stronger and stronger. She had definitely met this person before, but who was he? For a moment Bai Fei couldn't think of anything, but she was sure that she definitely knew the person in front of her. Qin Wentian indifferently glanced at her, ignoring her. At this moment, the sound of footsteps drifted over from afar. Qin Wentian turned his gaze over, and his pupils involuntarily narrowed as he stared at the two silhouettes approaching. These two silhouettes were none other than Bai Lui and the black-robed old man from the star-seizing manor. When the black-robed old man saw Qin Wentian, a sharp light flashed in his eyes. It was actually him. He was someone from the star-seizing manor, but after witnessing Qin Wentian's performance during the exchange, in addition to the fact that the star-seizing manor had been harmed by Qin Wentian, a cold light flickered in his eyes. Grandmaster Qin, what a scheme! Causing my star-seizing manor to lose so many experts. The black-robed old man walked over, only to see a cold killing intent flickering in Qin Wentian's eyes, so cold that the black-robed old man felt a chill run down his spine. Thinking of this, the black-robed old man coldly laughed as he walked to the back of Bai Lui. It seemed like this young man hated him to the core. Grandmaster Qin? An expression of contemplation appeared on Bai Fei's face. His surname was Qin, but she still couldn't think of anyone she knew who was a divine inscriptionist with the surname Qin. Are you alright? Qin Wentian asked. How could I be alright after being held hostage for so many days? Bai Lui glared at Qin Wentian, causing Qin Wentian to heave a sigh of relief. Since Bai Lui could still joke around with him, it meant that she hadn't encountered anything too bad. Release her and we'll forget about this matter, Qin Wentian coldly stated, staring at the black-robed old man. Qin Wentian, you overestimate yourself a little too much, the black-robed old man coldly replied. Qin Wentian? Bai Fei's mind shuddered as a silhouette appeared in her memories. The silhouette of the young man in front of her slowly overlapped with the image of the young man in front of her, causing her countenance to abruptly change. That's right, it was him. She only recognized him now. This divine inscriptionist was actually that young man from that small country. Chapter 266. The changes in Qin Wentian were too great. In just half a year's time, Bai Fei had almost failed to recognize him. Although she didn't have a deep impression of Qin Wentian back when she was in Chu, she had met him a few times and even had a direct conversation with him. Wu Xiu's memory was extremely good, and she couldn't recognize Qin Wentian. She could only say that Qin Wentian's changes were too great. She could still vaguely remember that Qin Wentian was once an impulsive young man, with hints of immaturity in him. There was also a faint trace of arrogance that belonged to the geniuses of a small country. Back then she couldn't even be bothered with him. She had once told Qin Wentian not to have any fantasies about Mo Qingcheng, but Bai Fei didn't expect that today she would meet Qin Wentian here under such circumstances. The youth back then had already shed his childishness and was even more devilishly handsome. His angular features were filled with a sense of calmness and indifference. At this moment there was even a hint of coldness, causing people to feel a sense of fear. This was a different kind of aura, completely different from the faint arrogance he had back then. However, what shocked her the most was that the Qin Wentian of the past was already a peak-tier third-rank divine inscriptionist. Not only that, he had also killed over 10 peak-tier Yuanfu cultivators from the star-seizing manor. Such a contrast caused Bai Fei to feel a sense of discomfort. That youth had actually come to the moon continent. Didn't he know that no matter how outstanding he was, there was still an insurmountable mountain in front of him? It's actually you. Bai Fei stared at Qin Wentian. Did you intentionally pretend not to know me? Qin Wentian swept a glance at Bai Fei as he coldly replied, Am I very familiar with you? Bai Fei's countenance stiffened as her chest heaved up and down. Her originally exposed fair skin caused the blood of those who saw it to boil. The devilishly handsome young man silently watched on, feeling that things were getting interesting. Bai Fei and Qin Wentian were acquainted, and Qin Wentian seemed to have some grudges with her. Not only that, Bai Lui from the star-seizing manor was someone Qin Wentian wanted to save. When the expert from the star-seizing manor saw Qin Wentian berating him, a cold light flickered in his eyes. What an impudent fellow. You probably don't understand the situation right now, do you? The black-robed elder suddenly waved his palm forward. The terrifying palm seemed to be able to pluck the stars and the moon as it grabbed at Qin Wentian. Don't hurt our friendship. The demonic young man took a step forward and struck out with his palm, immediately colliding with the palm print that was pouncing towards Qin Wentian, causing a loud explosion. What do you mean? The black-robed expert swept a cold glance at the demonic youth. We're all here for the sake of exiting this formation. Why must we fight and kill each other? The demonic young man laughed. Brother Qin, this place is fraught with danger, and you're able to help us out. After we exit this formation, I'll gift a beauty to Brother Qin. Isn't that perfect? Not only that, this friend from the star-seizing manor doesn't have a good temper. Although Brother Qin has high attainments in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions, if you insist on doing things your own way, you'll be at a disadvantage. Bai Fei's countenance stiffened, her countenance incredibly ugly to behold. Gift her to Qin Wentian? Qin Wentian could naturally hear the faint threat in the words of the black-robed elder, yet he still coldly stated, I, Qin, have no way to trust you. Humph, the black-robed elder coldly snorted, placing his hand on Bai Luyi's shoulder. Do you have a choice? Brother Qin, Miss Bai Lu's beauty can cause the moon to blush and the flowers to blush. It's very easy for men to fall in love with her. The demonic youth laughed evilly. Momentarily, the black-robed elder also extended his hand and lightly patted Bai Luyi's shoulder, causing her countenance to turn pale. She took a few steps forward, only to see the black-robed elder coldly snorting, his hand still placed on her shoulder. If you dare to make any more moves, I'll make sure you stay here forever. Qin Wentian swept his gaze over to the black-robed elder. The traps in the formation ahead are much more powerful, and no matter how strong you are, you won't be able to break them. I personally witnessed an expert from the Hua clan accidentally stumbling into one of the formations and dying. That's why I'm stopping here. But of course, if you wish to die, I won't stop you. The black-robed elder's hand froze, not daring to make any more moves. He smiled at Qin Wentian. In that case, you're willing to cooperate? Release her first, Qin Wentian stated. I'll take care of her safety. Just lead the way. How could the black-robed elder give up on capturing Bai Lui? Qin Wentian furrowed his brows. She's a girl, I don't trust you. Haha, it seems like you have feelings for her. The black-robed elder laughed before narrowing his eyes. Since that's the case, I won't release her. Qin Wentian's countenance turned even colder. Since that's the case, you can kill me and try to see if you can escape the formation ahead. Qin Wentian's eyes were filled with resolution, leaving no room for doubt. The black-robed elder furrowed his brows. He didn't expect Qin Wentian to be so crazy. It seemed like his feelings for Bai Lui were very deep. Brother Qin, death won't solve the problem. Bai Lui is such a beauty. If she's defiled by this old man, how can you die in peace? The demonic young man laughed evilly, causing the black-robed elder to join in as well. Both sides were unwilling to back down. And indeed, Qin Wentian's countenance turned incredibly unsightly. After a moment of silence, he stated, I'll switch places with her. You guys can capture me and follow behind her. Both of us will be under your control. The eyes of the black-robed elder flickered, as he exchanged glances with the demonic young man, after which both of them broke out into laughter. Qin Wentian's words seemed to be acceptable. Come over here, the black-robed elder coldly laughed. Qin Wentian glanced at the position the black-robed elder was standing in, before he stood up and walked towards him. Only when he reached his side did the black-robed elder release Bai Lui. Qin Wentian placed both his hands on Bai Luyi's shoulders. Are you all right? Bai Lui froze as a hint of shyness flashed past her face. She didn't expect Qin Wentian to make such an intimate gesture. But in the next instant, she saw a sharp glint of light flickering in Qin Wentian's eyes. How do you want to die? Abruptly, a voice rang out from Qin Wentian's mouth. At the same time, he abruptly stomped on the ground, causing the black-robed old man to freeze. After which, a thunderous boom rang out as his body sank into the ground. The black-robed elder howled in rage as he soared up into the air. However, he could feel a terrifying suppressive force pressing down on him. It was easy to get down but difficult to get up. He lifted his hands in anger and lunged out, only to see Qin Wentian and Bai Lui stepping out. The air currents in this space became chaotic, and in an instant it was impossible to see anything clearly. However, the terrifying sound of sword whistling could still be heard. Bai Fei was also stunned. After which, she only felt a palm imprint abruptly slamming into her, blasting her out of the formation. Falling to the ground, Bai Fei cursed in a low voice, "Bastard." But when she felt the turbulent air currents in front of her, her heart couldn't help but tremble. So it turned out that that fellow had long been prepared for this, and had set up overlapping divine inscriptions here. The black-robed elder howled madly as he felt an intense pain in his feet. Both his legs had been shattered by the divine inscriptions he had set up earlier. His countenance paled, and an instant later, he saw a pair of ice-cold eyes staring at him, pointing a finger at him. Instantly, a boundless amount of sword light gushed towards him. Both his legs were sprawled on the ground, and he struggled to get up, but he was powerless to do so. "Spare me." A pleading expression flashed in the black-robed elder's eyes, but how could Qin Wentian be polite? His sharp sword slashed out in a frenzy, and finally, the black-robed elder's body continued to sink downwards, as the divine inscriptions on the ground shattered his body. As for the demonic young man, at the instant Qin Wentian made his move, he had already been trapped within the formation. This was a overlapping formation with a trapping formation, as well as a divine inscription of slaughter. Qin Wentian had been waiting here all along, waiting for Bai Luyi's arrival. Who would have thought that the demonic young man and Bai Fei would arrive at the same time? The demonic young man's astral souls flickered, as a golden light enveloped him, helping him to defend against the incoming attacks. At the same time, he tried to break out of the formation, but he discovered that he was trapped within a maze, unable to escape. Finally, the demonic young man stopped, not daring to move recklessly. He wasn't proficient in divine inscriptions, and knew that it would be extremely difficult to escape. But he also understood that as long as he was careful, no matter how powerful the third-rank divine inscriptions were, they wouldn't be able to kill him. Hence, he chose to stop, not wanting to repeat the same mistake as the black-robed elder. The terrifying swords whistled through the air, yet the demonic young man merely waved his hands, as the light from his astral souls enveloped him. A golden body appeared in front of him, blocking the swords. Cracking sounds rang out unceasingly, but the golden body didn't shatter. "Brother Qin, since you can't kill me, why don't you let me go? From now on we will have nothing to do with each other. How about it?" The voice of the demonic young man drifted out, and at this moment, Qin Wentian and Bai Lui appeared outside the formation. Qin Wentian's countenance was extremely cold. If he didn't kill this person, there would only be trouble in the future. In the formation he inscribed, the strongest killing intent was none other than the slaughter divine inscriptions embedded in the ground. Not only that, the position he was sitting at was precisely in front of the slaughter divine inscriptions. As long as someone walked in front of him, there was a high chance that they would be standing there. At the start, the demonic young man was the one standing there, but after the black-robed elder arrived, he inadvertently shifted his position, causing the black-robed elder to be the one standing there, holding Bai Lui in his arms as he faced Qin Wentian. This had directly led to the death of the black-robed elder. But if the demonic young man merely relied on the peak-tier third-rank divine inscriptions to kill him, it would be extremely difficult. Within the formation, the demonic young man's countenance flickered with a murderous light as a long golden spear appeared in his hands, emanating a terrifying aura of destruction. "Careful!" Qin Wentian spoke. Abruptly, a terrifying beam of light shot forth from the formation as a beam of golden light shot out from the formation, shooting towards them. "Go!" Qin Wentian commanded. His opponents had extremely powerful divine weapons, and it was only a matter of time before the formation collapsed. Qin Wentian was extremely decisive. Knowing that he wouldn't be able to kill the demonic young man, he immediately pulled Bai Lui away. Bai Fei's countenance stiffened, but she soon followed after Qin Wentian. She was too weak in this formation, so she had no choice but to follow the others. Scram! Qin Wentian abruptly turned his head, coldly glancing at Bai Fei. Bai Fei's countenance stiffened as she stared at Qin Wentian. I Qin am a subordinate of Jackdaw. I'm not fit to be together with Miss Bai Fei. Qin Wentian coldly spoke, causing Bai Fei's countenance to turn pale. In the past, how could she possibly look up to Qin Wentian? But now, she had to follow behind Qin Wentian as though she was begging for mercy. How could she not be treated coldly? Even now in front of Qingcheng, you are still a jackdaw. You're not fit to be together with her. How could Bai Fei endure Qin Wentian's attitude? She swept a glance at the two of them. The two of you are quite compatible. Whether I'm compatible or not, it's not up to you to decide. You don't have the qualifications yet. Today I saved your life because you and Qingcheng are fellow disciples. As for me and Bai Lui, tell Qingcheng that I, Qin Wentian, will definitely come to the Pill Emperor Hall to fetch her. After speaking, Qin Wentian flicked his sleeves and departed, leaving Bai Fei dumbfounded. Chapter 267. After Qin Wentian and Bai Lui left, Bai Lui's pure and innocent eyes stared fixedly at Qin Wentian. At this moment, the coldness radiating from Qin Wentian had already dissipated. Noticing Bai Lui staring at him, he couldn't help but smile as he asked, "You like looking at me so much? Look at your arrogant face." Bai Lui glared at him before shifting her gaze away. Eventually, she couldn't help but turn her gaze onto Qin Wentian as she asked in a light voice, "Mo Qingcheng, is she really your girlfriend?" Earlier, she had heard the conversation between Qin Wentian and Bai Fei. Bai Fei was someone from the Pill Emperor Hall, and not only that, Qin Wentian had personally said that he would go to the Pill Emperor Hall to fetch Mo Qingcheng. Back then, when Qin Wentian had mentioned Mo Qingcheng to her, Bai Lui had thought that he was just joking. And Qin Wentian shrugged. Bai Lui's beautiful eyes brightened as she asked, "Can you tell me more about it? I'm very curious." "Even beauties like to gossip?" Qin Wentian laughed. "Mo Qingcheng and I both come from a small country named Chu. That place is under the jurisdiction of the 9 Mystical Palace, and there's always some conflict between my clan and the royal clan. One time I fainted in a forest and Qingcheng saved me. However, I didn't know that it was her who saved me. She only told me about it after I got to know her." Qin Wentian recounted the past to Bai Lui, as Bai Lui listened attentively. Her beautiful eyes shone with a brilliant light as she listened attentively to the story. "You chopped off Hua Xiaoyun's arm?" Bai Lui exclaimed in shock. "Ma'am, if it wasn't for the fact that Luo He was there, the Hua clan wouldn't have spared me." Qin Wentian nodded his head. "In that case, you came to the Moon Continent to look for Mo Qingcheng?" Bai Lui felt extremely moved in her heart. From a small country, Qin Wentian had come all the way to the Moon Continent, one of the 9 continents of Grand Xia. She was very clear on how difficult it was to bring Mo Qingcheng away from the Pill Emperor Hall. The main reason is to kill Hua Xiaoyun. But of course, there's also the matter of your White Deer Institute, Qin Wentian replied. White Deer Institute? Bai Lui was taken aback. She didn't understand. "If I tell you, don't blame me for not telling you before," Qin Wentian said. Bai Lui's curiosity was piqued when she saw the mysterious look on Qin Wentian's face. Definitely. Do you know of the hidden bloodline of the Azure Emperor?" Qin Wentian stared into Bai Lui's eyes as he spoke. Bai Lui's heart pounded violently as she halted her steps. This was the greatest secret of the White Deer Institute, something only the core members of the White Deer Institute knew of. Even after so many years, this secret had only grown fainter and fainter. However, how did Qin Wentian know about this? Seeing the expression on Bai Lui's face, Qin Wentian already knew that Bai Lui knew about this. Bai Lui's beautiful eyes stared at Qin Wentian. "I'm the successor of the Azure faction," Qin Wentian replied, his words causing Bai Lui's body to tremble involuntarily. She felt as though her brain had short-circuited. Qin Wentian was the successor of the Azure faction? Qin Wentian stretched out his hand, retrieving a medallion. The word Azure was engraved on the medallion. Azure Emperor Medallion. Bai Luyi's voice trembled. Seeing Qin Wentian keeping the medallion, she drew in a deep breath and asked, "In that case, are you here to take over the hidden bloodline of the White Deer Institute? Do you think that's possible?" Qin Wentian asked. Bai Lui contemplated for a moment before replying in a low voice, "It's hard to say. The White Deer Institute has existed for such a long time, and it would be extremely difficult to force them to obey just because of a command medallion. I don't have any intentions of making the White Deer Institute become my vassal force. But since you're from the Azure faction, are you really willing to remain hidden in the Granxia Empire? Why can't you make the Granxia Empire tremble?" Qin Wentian laughed, his words casual and carefree. Yet, Bai Luyi's heart was filled with great waves of shock. This is also a risk. If we fail, the White Deer Institute would be consigned to eternal damnation, Bai Lui replied seriously. Qin Wentian, you have to promise me that before you have enough power, you will not spread the word that the White Deer Institute is part of the Azure faction. When the Azure Emperor fell back then, too many transcendent powers had a hand in it. If they knew that the Azure faction still exists, they would definitely exterminate them. Don't worry, before I have enough power, I will never let others know of my relationship with the White Deer Institute. At most, I'll let others misunderstand our relationship, Qin Wentian joked, his words causing Bai Lui to glare at him. Fine, you have to work hard to gain the recognition of the White Deer Institute. A radiant smile appeared on Bai Luyi's face. In that case, you will support me? Qin Wentian laughed, his words causing Bai Lui to glare at him again. Didn't you tell me because you want me to support you? Qin Wentian lowered his head and smiled. After that, he turned his gaze to the horizons and continued walking forward while he spoke in a low voice. If you don't support me, I will directly give up on the White Deer Institute. The White Deer Institute will forever be the White Deer Institute. Upon hearing Qin Wentian's words, Bai Luyi's heart trembled once more. If she didn't support him, Qin Wentian would give up on the Azure faction. Not only that, it was such a big secret, yet Qin Wentian had told her not only because he wanted her support, but also because he wanted to know her attitude. This was trust. Qin Wentian had already treated her as one of the people he trusted the most. I'll wait for the day when the Azure faction stands at the peak of Granxia. Qin Wentian's silhouette seemed to grow taller and taller. The smile on Bai Luyi's innocent face was as radiant as the sun. She also believed that Qin Wentian would be able to do it. Qin Wentian and Bai Lui continued walking forward, arriving at the place where Qin Wentian had killed the middle-aged man. However, before they could even get close, Qin Wentian halted his steps and gestured for Bai Lui to keep quiet as he crouched behind the hill. Qin Wentian's powerful perception could clearly sense that there were people from the Pill Emperor Hall, Zhan Chen and his beloved. As the number 11 ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings, Zhan Chen's speed of arriving here was extremely fast. Staring at his beloved Qingyu, Zhan Chen retrieved a medicinal pill and passed it to her. Qingyu, eat this first, it will stimulate the energy in your body. Qingyu glanced at Zhan Chen, her beautiful eyes as calm as still water. After which, she received the medicinal pill from Zhan Chen and swallowed it without hesitation. There's already someone who came here before us. There's no need to doubt his strength, but he's already dead. And just now, the third brother of the Li clan failed to break the formation and died inside. Zhan Chen pointed to the two interspatial rings in front of him as he calmly continued. This is the most dangerous place. However, if we pass through this path, we might be able to reach the exit and obtain the Ascendant's inheritance. As he spoke, Zhan Chen's gentle and refined countenance flickered with sharpness. That was ambition. He was the strongest participant in this trial. If the Ascendant could obtain the inheritance, it would definitely belong to him. Qingyu was clad in a light blue robe, looking clean and beautiful. Her gaze when she looked at Zhan Chen was always so gentle and beautiful, even at this moment. Zhan Chen, you will definitely succeed. Qingyu smiled. At this instant her smile was incomparably beautiful. Even Zhan Chen couldn't help but feel his heart trembling as a hint of unwillingness flashed in his eyes. After I die, the future of the Pill Emperor Hall will definitely belong to you. Qingyu's smile was filled with a poignant beauty. Her words caused Zhang Chen's countenance to change as he stared at Qing Yu in shock. I know that medicinal pill will not only stimulate my potential, it will also cause me to lose my rationality and listen to your every command. Qing Yu still had a smile on her face as she spoke. However, her beautiful eyes were filled with tears as she continued, Zhan Chen. We've known each other for 8 years. I understand you too well. From the first day we met, you have always been so clean and refined, but in your eyes there's only ambition. I brought you into the Pill Emperor Hall, introduced you to my father, and allowed you to enter the tutelage of my senior granduncle. You've been so hard-working in your cultivation, and your achievements are clear for all to see. In these 8 years you've become the most dazzling person in the Pill Emperor Hall. You're always filled with ambition, only for the sake of your dreams. Qing Yu smiled as she continued. Back then, senior granduncle said that Qingcheng would become one of the most important people in the Pill Emperor Hall in the future. I know your heart has moved, but I'm no longer able to help you. However, Mo Qingcheng might be able to. The gaze you used to look at her is the same as the gaze you used to look at me back then. I know that if it wasn't for me, senior granduncle would be more than willing to matchmake the two of you. The two of you are the two most dazzling figures in the Pill Emperor Hall, and I can only help you one last time. After speaking, Qing Yu turned and walked towards the formation where the third brother of the Li clan died. On the way here, there were already 3 people who had become Zhan Chen's stepping stones, and now she was the last person to die. Her heart ached. When Zhan Chen took out the medicinal pill, her heart had already died. She understood him too well. Even a single glance from him couldn't be hidden from her. Since her heart had already died, what was the point of living on? Could it be that Zhan Chen really had to act against her personally? How could she allow herself to witness such a scene? Even if she died, she wouldn't allow it. From Qing Yu's body, the most beautiful astral soul was released. Wielding a sword with both hands, she released her aura to the extreme as she rushed into the formation. Upon seeing that beautiful radiance, Zhan Chen's heart twitched as a malevolent expression of agony flashed past his face. However, very quickly it was replaced by determination and ambition. That sharpness of his could not be shaken by anyone or anything. That was his Tao heart. The path he had walked all the way here was too bitter, too tiring. He would continue on this path until the point where he could look down upon the entire Grand Xia. This was his heart, it was unshakable. Closing his eyes, Zhan Chen quietly sensed Qing Yu advancing forward, feeling her approaching death step by step. His heart had never been so calm before. However, at this moment, Zhan Chen's eyes abruptly snapped open as a terrifying cold light flickered within. After which, his silhouette flickered as he lunged towards the direction behind him. His speed was as fast as lightning, and his eyes were even sharper than swords. Chapter 268. When Zhan Chen closed his eyes, he instantly sensed that someone was spying on him. The killing intent in his heart instantly erupted forth. If news of this were to spread, Zhan Chen, the chosen of the Pill Emperor Hall, would do anything to achieve his goals, even sacrificing his own lover. The Pill Emperor Hall would definitely not spare him. The person spying on him had to die. Let's go. Qin Wentian knew that Zhan Chen had discovered them the instant he dashed out. He hadn't expected Zhan Chen's perception to be so strong. Grabbing Bai Lu Yi's hand, Qin Wentian retreated with explosive speed. Sir, it's best if you stay behind. Zhan Chen's voice drifted over from behind, as a terrifying coldness gushed forth, enveloping Qin Wentian and Bai Lu Yi. Just the intensity of that killing intent was enough to cause them to shiver in fear. How could Qin Wentian and Bai Lu Yi stop? Executing the Garuda movement technique, Qin Wentian increased his speed to the maximum. Zhan Chen, who was behind them, flicked his finger as an astral sword appeared in front of him. Zhan Chen's silhouette flickered as the astral sword pierced through the air, causing dust and sand to rise up in the air. However, the distance between Zhan Chen and Qin Wentian was rapidly shortening. Although Qin Wentian's movement technique was strong, his cultivation base was only at the 3rd level of Yuanfu. Bai Lu Yi was the same as well, while Zhan Chen was at the peak of Yuanfu and ranked number 11 on the Heavenly Fate rankings. How could Qin Wentian compare to his speed? The difference in strength was too great. Qin Wentian's countenance was incredibly unsightly to behold, as a cold light flickered in his eyes. He had never imagined that he would stumble upon Zhang Chen's secret. Busy. Qin Wentian's palms trembled as the Yellow Springs monument shot out, landing on the hillside in front of them. Go up. Qin Wentian and Bai Lui directly stepped onto the Yellow Springs monument, causing a terrifying aura to permeate the air. Qin Wentian's footsteps trembled as the Yellow Springs monument emitted a blood-colored glow. Zhang Chen dashed over, yet he abruptly halted his steps as he stared at Qin Wentian, who had already entered a divine inscription trap. His palms trembled as a screen of swords appeared in front of him. Die! Zhang Chen spat out a single word, and the screen of swords transformed into a sharp sword shadow that shot towards Qin Wentian. Go down! Qin Wentian pulled Bai Lui along with him as they tumbled down the hill. The screen of swords whistled past their heads, exuding a bone-piercing chill. Zhang Chen coldly snorted. The sword light beneath his feet grew sharper and sharper, as though a boundless sword keening could be heard. He stepped out, stepping on his sword as he dashed towards the center of the divine inscription formation, dashing straight towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's countenance was incredibly unsightly to behold. He was truly unwilling to die like this. Little E. Wentian. At this moment, a voice rang out from the side. A glimmer of hope appeared on Bai Lui's pale countenance. Only now did Qin Wentian notice a silhouette sprinting over from the side. It was none other than Bai Lu Jing. A resolute look flashed in Qin Wentian's eyes. With a flick of his finger, fresh blood gushed forth. His finger imprinted itself onto the Yellow Springs monument as a blood-colored light frenziedly flowed into it. Zhang Chen casually waved his hand, and an earth-shattering sword appeared in the air, slashing towards Qin Wentian and Bai Lui. Qin Wentian's body flipped, and the Yellow Springs monument abruptly blasted out, aiming straight for Zhang Chen. A thunderous boom echoed out, and Zhang Chen could feel his heart pounding as his blood vessels trembled. At the same time, the sword slammed into the Yellow Springs monument. Rumble! The Yellow Springs monument was repelled by the sword strike, slamming ruthlessly into Qin Wentian's body. Qin Wentian and Bai Lui's bodies slid down the slope as they coughed out mouthfuls of blood. Bai Lu Jing had finally arrived. Stay your hand! Zhang Chen roared. His body turned illusory, akin to a shadow. In an instant, a fearsome killing art descended from the skies, slashing towards Zhang Chen. Zhang Chen's eyes widened in shock, his body trembling violently. Zhang Chen stabbed out with his finger, and a terrifying sword intent transformed into countless sword fragments, landing on the resplendent golden line of light. The golden line of light descended from the heavens, and the sword fragments completely dissipated, but it still continued to descend, slashing towards Zhang Chen's body. 9 slashes of the great sun. Zhang Chen's eyes narrowed, and the sword chi around him intensified. He stabbed out with his finger, landing on the golden line of light, and the terrifying destructive might cause the surrounding space to crackle. Finally, under the might of this finger strike, the golden line of light dissipated, and Bai Lu Jing appeared in front of Qin Wentian and Bai Lui. Brother! Bai Lui called out. A cold light flickered in Bai Lu Jing's eyes as he stared at Zhang Chen. Ranked 56th on the Heavenly Fate rankings, Bai Lu Jing. Based on your strength, you should be able to advance a little further in the next ranking battle, Zhang Chen stated, staring at Bai Lu Jing. Bai Lu Jing's eyes flashed with killing intent. That earlier strike of Zhang Chen's was clearly aimed at killing Qin Wentian and Bai Lui. A terrifying aura gushed forth from him as Bai Lu Jing released his astral souls. 3 astral souls appeared. One was the Blazing Flames astral soul, one was the Wind Shadow astral soul, and the last was the 7 Slaughters astral soul. The 3 astral souls originated from the 3rd, 4th and 5th heavenly layers respectively. Zhang Chen, who was usually calm and composed, was now emanating a towering killing intent. Big Brother Jing, this is just a misunderstanding. At this moment, Qin Wentian's voice drifted over. Bai Lu Jing froze for a moment, only to hear Qin Wentian continuing, Zhang Chen, you chased after me and Bai Lui for no reason at all. Is there a misunderstanding? Zhang Chen was ranked number 11 on the Heavenly Fate rankings, a heavens chosen from the Pill Emperor Hall. Even if Bai Lu Jing was strong, if a battle really erupted, it would be disadvantageous to them. Zhang Chen glanced at Qin Wentian, only to see that his opponent's eyes were clear, without the slightest hint of hatred. He didn't expect Qin Wentian's schemes to run so deep, purposely acting as if it was a misunderstanding. In reality, Qin Wentian was hinting to him that he would pretend he didn't know what he saw earlier. As for the fact that he almost killed Qin Wentian didn't seem to care at all. Did he really not care? One could only say that Qin Wentian was extremely good at enduring. Haha, Zhanchen, you're actually here as well. From afar, two silhouettes could be seen walking over. It was none other than Zhao Lai and the first elder of the Li clan. The first elder of the Li clan was extremely unlucky to have met Zhao Lai. Hence he was forced to lead the way. This is the divine inscriptionist grandmaster. If that's the case, that's even better. With two divine inscriptionists here, we should be able to leave this damned place. Zhao Lai's gaze landed on Qin Wentian, as a fiery light flickered in his eyes. He initially thought that Zhan Chun was forcing Qin Wentian to lead the way. But Bailu Jing didn't agree, resulting in the confrontation. I think so too. Grandmaster Qin should be willing to lead the way, right? Zhan Chun coldly asked as he stared at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian understood that as long as he didn't die, the killing intent in Zhan Chen's heart wouldn't diminish. But wasn't he the same as well? If there was a chance, he would definitely kill Zhan Chen. Naturally. Qin Wentian laughed, agreeing to Zhan Chen's request. With little brother Qin leading the way, our journey would be much smoother. Old First laughed, the tense atmosphere from earlier dissipating into nothingness. Bailu Yi naturally understood the meaning behind Qin Wentian's words. She kept her mouth shut and pretended as though nothing had happened. However, as they continued onwards, Qin Wentian and Bailu Yi maintained a certain distance from Zhan Chen. Bailu Jing didn't ask anything. But how could he not understand the hidden meaning behind Qin Wentian's words? After a moment, they returned to the location where Zhan Chen and Qing Yu were conversing. At this moment there was an additional interspatial ring. Not only that, there were other experts from the Hua clan present as well. They're all here. A voice drifted over from behind. Everyone turned their heads, only to see Yang Fan, Zhu Sha, and Bailu Jing walking over. The three of them were all experts from the star-seizing manor. They had actually gathered together. At this moment, the gazes of Yang Fan and Zhu Sha landed on Qin Wentian. A cold light flickered in their eyes, containing a hint of killing intent. From their point of view, Qin Wentian had to be held responsible for the deaths of over 10 experts from the star-seizing manor. However, they knew that now wasn't the time to deal with Qin Wentian. They still needed to borrow his strength to pass through the formation. Grandmaster Qin, please lead the way. Zhan Chen gestured to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian glanced at the people in front of him. His countenance was calm, but in his heart, he knew that he was in an extremely precarious situation. Right? Nodding his head, Qin Wentian began to inscribe the formation in front of him. Bailu Jing and Bailu Yi stood behind Qin Wentian, while Old Li followed Qin Wentian, joining forces to decipher the formation. Qin Wentian's movements were extremely slow, causing Old Li to feel that something was amiss. It was as though Qin Wentian was doing this on purpose. In reality, Qin Wentian had been waiting for an opportunity. But when he thought of the strength of those behind him, he knew that it would be impossible for him to kill all of them in a single move. Zhan Chen, Yang Fan, Zhao Lai and Hua Feng were all rankers on the Heavenly Fate rankings. It would be too difficult if he wanted to ambush them while he was deciphering the formation. An instant later, Qin Wentian picked up one of the interspatial rings, leaving the other one behind. Old Li froze as he picked up the interspatial ring. His eyes sunk in as an expression of agony and agony appeared on his face. Third brother. Old Li clutched the interspatial ring tightly. All of a sudden, his gaze froze as he saw the word Zhan inscribed in front of Qin Wentian's body. Zhan Chen. Old Li's heart trembled as his body trembled unstably. Drawing in a deep breath, he pretended that he hadn't seen it, yet a glint of hatred flickered in his eyes. Qin Wentian's body blocked the words, and after he finished inscribing them, he immediately erased them as he continued to decipher the formation. Those behind him quietly followed behind. Gradually, the pine trees and ancient peaks appeared before their eyes, as though they were just inches away from them. They were getting closer, they were almost there. Fluctuations of divine inscriptions, Qin Wentian abruptly shifted his gaze forward. Although the pine trees and ancient peaks were just inches away from him, there was an indistinct feeling to them, as though there was a barrier of divine inscriptions blocking their path. Qin Wentian's movements involuntarily halted as he closed his eyes, quietly sensing the barrier of divine inscriptions in front of him. Qin Wentian could also sense that they were just a step away from the exit. Chapter 269. Those behind couldn't help but frown when they saw Qin Wentian stopping. A baleful aura radiated from Zhu Sha as he coldly asked, "What are you doing? It's hard to break the formation. I have to focus on comprehending it. If you don't feel at ease, why don't you try it yourself?" Qin Wentian coldly replied, his words causing Zhu Sha to snort coldly, but he didn't say anything else. Instead, he stared at Qin Wentian with a cold glint in his eyes. After this matter was concluded, he would definitely teach Qin Wentian a lesson. A mere divine inscriptionist actually dared to be so arrogant, not knowing the immensity of death. Qin Wentian naturally understood the killing intent in Zhu Sha's heart, yet he pretended to be oblivious to it, closing his eyes and meditating for half a day. Behind him, a few others also arrived, but they were all waiting quietly. Finally, Qin Wentian opened his eyes as he spoke to Bailu Jing and Bailu Yi. "Big brother Jing, the two of you, try placing your hands on these two positions." After speaking, Qin Wentian's palm streaked across the air as a beam of astral light shot out, landing on two positions on the rampart. "Right." Bailu Jing and Bailu Yi nodded as they advanced forward. "Wait a minute." Behind them someone suddenly spoke. It was none other than Zhu Sha. His countenance flashed with sharpness as he asked, "Why the two of them? It's just a probe and there's a certain level of danger. If Senior is willing to act, I'm naturally more than willing." Qin Wentian turned, smiling. Zhu Sha's countenance sank as he stared at Qin Wentian, his eyes flickering with uncertainty. This young man's schemes were extremely deep. He had already tricked them once before, intentionally asking for their help. Yet when they refused, he found someone from the White Deer Institute and left. This time around, they mustn't fall for his tricks so easily. Maybe he was intentionally letting Bailu Jing and Bailu Yi go up, luring them to act. "Let them go first. Zhu Sha, the two of you follow behind." Young Fan spoke, glancing at Qin Wentian. He wanted to see what tricks Qin Wentian had up his sleeves. If Bailu Jing and Bailu Yi passed, Zhu Sha could enter again. Zhu Sha and the other cultivator from the star-seizing manor nodded their heads in agreement as they followed after Bailu Jing and Bailu Yi. Bailu Jing and Bailu Yi naturally trusted Qin Wentian. They pressed their palms against the location Qin Wentian had pointed to, and instantly, the divine inscription materialized, becoming clearer and clearer. Two doors abruptly appeared, and Bailu Jing and Bailu Yi's silhouettes abruptly vanished as they stepped through the doors. The countenances of Zhu Sha and Bailu Jing froze. Abruptly, they lunged forwards, placing their palms on the spot where the Bailu siblings had placed their palms. Abruptly, a terrifying baleful aura gushed forth. "Be careful." Qin Wentian stepped out. However, it was already too late. Zhu Sha and Qin Wentian were sent retreating as the terrifying destructive energy gushed towards them. Scram! Zhu Sha roared in rage as he blasted out with both his palms. Two gigantic palm imprints appeared, containing a terrifying might within them. Cracking sounds rang out unceasingly as the destructive energy dissipated into nothingness. Zhu Sha drew in a breath of cold air. His palms were a mess of flesh and blood. "Senior's movements were too fast. I didn't have enough time to warn you." Qin Wentian and Old First walked over, smiling at Zhu Sha. Zhu Sha's palms trembled as he stared fixedly at Qin Wentian. Didn't have enough time to warn him? How could he believe such nonsense? Glancing at his companions, they were in an even worse state. Their arms were a mess of flesh and blood. Young Fan's countenance sank. This brat was doing this intentionally. Not to mention that Bailu Jing and Bailu Yi had already passed, and they couldn't even see their silhouettes. "This divine inscription is constantly changing. We should change the location for the second time." Qin Wentian walked towards the divine inscription as he spoke. Exchanging a glance with Old First, he sent out a palm imprint. "Leave them behind." The countenances of Yang Fan, Zhanchan and the rest all changed. Earlier, The spectators had all noticed the wall of divine inscriptions attacking Zhu Sha. Qin Wentian's hypocritical act had caused them to coldly snort in their hearts. But who would have thought that Qin Wentian would suddenly make a move? But it was already too late. With a flash of light, Qin Wentian and Old First silhouettes vanished simultaneously, causing the countenances of all present to turn ashen. Qin Wentian and Old First arrived at the other end of the divine inscription rampart, only to see Bai Lu Jing and Bai Lu Yi there. Little brother Qin, Old Third, he? Old First asked as he stared at Qin Wentian. Zhan Chun, Bai Lu Yi and I eavesdropped on the conversation between him and his companion. Uncle Li San was forced to break the formation and died within. Not only that, Zhan Chun even asked his companion to personally enter the divine inscription rampart to test the formation. Qin Wentian spoke, his words causing Bai Lu Jing's eyes to gleam with sharpness. Did you all eavesdrop on his secret? That's why he chased after you and Little E? I could only pretend that nothing had happened. Zhao Lai just so happened to arrive, so Zhan Chun didn't mention this matter. Qin Wentian nodded his head as he gazed ahead. At the foot of the ancient pine peak, there was a great hall, and within it, a statue could be seen. They've arrived. Based on their strength, this divine inscription rampart won't be able to trap them. Old First spoke. If those people joined forces, they would definitely be able to break apart the divine inscription rampart. Qin Wentian nodded his head. Let's go ahead and take a look. The four of them nodded their heads as they advanced towards the great hall at the foot of the ancient pine peak. There were no more traps outside, and they directly entered the great hall. The great hall was extremely spacious, and the statue in front of them resembled a human. It was extremely lifelike, and in its hands there were two ancient scrolls. This great hall was extremely clean, and there was a layer of light enveloping it. Qin Wentian and the rest stood outside, but they didn't immediately enter. This was because there were many divine inscriptions flowing on the ground in front of them. It doesn't seem like a trap? Old First glanced at Qin Wentian. It seems like the energy of the divine inscriptions needs to be controlled by someone. Not only is it not a trap, it can even be controlled by someone proficient in divine inscriptions. Qin Wentian nodded his head. He had the same feeling as Old First. Let's go up and take a look. Bai Lu Jing laughed. He was truly audacious, directly taking a step forward. Instantly, on the ground in front of the statue, a golden light flashed as beams of golden light descended, blinding the eyes of those who saw it. After which, the ground cracked apart as a few silhouettes rose up from the ground. There were a total of 9 silhouettes, all of them radiating a resplendent golden light. Their eyes were as sharp as swords as they swept their gazes over to Qin Wentian and the rest. When Qin Wentian stared into the eyes of the 9 golden armored silhouettes, he felt as though his body was about to be pierced through by their gazes. 4 of you arrived at the same time. Which one of you is the divine inscriptionist? One of the golden armored silhouettes asked, his tone sharp. Qin Wentian stared at the golden armored silhouette. I am? Me too. Old Man Li similarly spoke, narrowing his eyes. These 9 golden armored silhouettes seemed to be puppets, yet their eyes seemed to contain intelligence. The gaze of the golden armored silhouette swept over Qin Wentian and Old Man Li as he stated, the 9 of us are golden armored silhouettes created by our master. Our cultivation bases are at the peak of Yuanfu, and we are tasked to protect our master's inheritance. Only one of us will be chosen, and we must be a genius with extraordinary attainments in both divine inscriptions and martial Tao. Qin Wentian's countenance flickered. On the way here, there had been many tests, and it seemed that the purpose of these tests was indeed to select the most outstanding geniuses at the peak of Yuanfu. Little E, stand behind me. Bai Lu Jing spoke. The 9 golden armored silhouettes exuded an aura of sharpness. Among them, 4 of them stepped forward, their eyes gleaming with a terrifying killing intent. In their hands they wielded golden long spears. They were the final test. Bai Lu Jing released his martial soul as a terrifying killing intent gushed forth from him. This was the power of the 7 slaughters astral soul. You not bad, but it's still insufficient. One of the golden armored silhouettes glared at Bai Lu Jing, after which he abruptly dashed out, his long spear piercing through the air, akin to a bolt of golden lightning. Bai Lu Jing took a step forward, executing the 9 beheadings of the great sun. His innate technique, infused with the will of his mandate, erupted forth as the lines of the great sun appeared in the air. Break! The golden-armored silhouette coldly roared. A bolt of lightning appeared on the tip of his long spear, slamming into the lines of the great sun, instantly shattering them apart. Bai Lu Jing's countenance stiffened. The combat prowess of this golden-armored silhouette was truly terrifying. The 9 beheadings of the great sun was unleashed once more, as rays of scorching sunlight cascaded downwards. A golden sun appeared above Bai Lu Jing's head as a terrifying storm of flames howled in rage. Even a peak-level Yuanfu cultivator would be split into 2 if they were struck by the rays of the great sun. However, the combat prowess of the golden-armored silhouette far exceeded his expectations. Bai Lu Jing had no way to deal with him. Qin Wentian and Old Li also met the attacks of the golden-armored silhouette. Qin Wentian stomped on the ground as a terrifying divine inscription erupted forth. There were many intricate and complicated divine inscriptions on the ground, all of which could be transformed into attacks for him to use. Qin Wentian unceasingly controlled the divine inscriptions to attack. However, the golden-armored silhouette was too strong. He could destroy the divine inscriptions with a single strike. Step by step, the golden-armored silhouette walked towards Qin Wentian as he icily stated, "Your strength is too weak, you aren't even qualified to compete for the inheritance. You deserve death." After speaking, the killing intent radiating from him intensified as he continued walking towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's countenance stiffened as he coldly stated, "When the refinement grounds opened, it all depended on one's own ability. The 4 of us were the first to arrive here. Naturally, it wasn't luck. Why are we not qualified to compete for the inheritance?" From the start to the end, leaving aside the talent of others, just based on the tests here, the one who passed the test was none other than Qin Wentian. But at this moment, the golden-armored silhouette actually said that he wasn't qualified to compete for the inheritance. How could he not be enraged? This inheritance not only tests one's attainments in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions, it also tests one's strength. I don't know how the 4 of you arrived here, but with a cultivation base at the 3rd level of Yuanfu, how can you be qualified to receive the inheritance? This inheritance should be left to those with outstanding talent in the future. The killing intent of the golden-armored silhouette didn't diminish as he continued. The inheritance doesn't belong to you. Die. As the sound of his voice faded, the golden spear once again pierced towards Qin Wentian. The sharpness in his eyes caused Qin Wentian to feel pain in his eyes. This golden-armored silhouette wasn't lying. He really wanted to kill Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's heart grew colder. What a good, the inheritance doesn't belong to you. Chapter 270. The killing intent of the golden-armored man intensified. A terrifying sharpness gushed forth from him as he stepped out. His golden long spear stabbed out explosively once more as a bolt of golden lightning shot towards Qin Wentian. It was unknown how strong the might of this attack was. Qin Wentian stepped out consecutively as divine inscriptions flashed, manifesting an azure dragon that soared towards the golden lightning. With a thunderous boom, the divine inscriptions shattered. The 9 of us are the guardians of the inheritance, and our cultivation bases are all at the peak of Yuanfu. If the contender for the inheritance is outstanding in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions and has the support of Divine Inscriptions, he would be able to defeat us and seize the inheritance. However, you only have the attainments in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions, how can you not die? The words spoken by the golden-armored man were extremely sharp. With every step he took, a surge of sharpness bore down on Qin Wentian, causing Qin Wentian to feel as though his body was about to be pierced through. Qin Wentian retreated, yet at this moment, the sound of whistling wind could be heard as several silhouettes dashed into the great hall. They were none other than Zhanshan, Yangfan, Zhaolai, Orphan, and the rest. They had joined forces and used their strongest attack to break apart the barrier of divine inscriptions, and immediately rushed towards the great hall. Upon seeing that Qin Wentian and the rest had yet to obtain the inheritance, they heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. Seems like Qin Wentian and the rest weren't having it easy. Zhu Sha's hands were still stained with blood. When he swept his gaze towards Qin Wentian, his killing intent was extremely sharp. Now that they had arrived here, the inheritance was already in front of them. There was no need for Qin Wentian anymore. This brat deserved to be killed. Grandmaster Qin, how do you wish to die? Zhu Sha icily asked. Qin Wentian coldly stared at him. Could it be that you guys don't wish to leave this secret realm? Zhu Sha's countenance changed, only to see a golden-armored man speaking. Since all of you are here, all of you have the qualifications to fight for the inheritance. If you defeat us, you will be able to obtain the treasure of the Ascendant. After that, the entire secret realm will be destroyed, and you can leave with ease. Hearing the golden-armored man's words, the killing intent in Zhu Sha's eyes intensified, and he grinned at Qin Wentian. However, Zhan Chan, Yang Fan and the others were all staring at the ancient book in the statue's hand. They didn't even have the intention to kill Qin Wentian anymore. If they could obtain the Empyrean's inheritance, it would be like adding wings to a tiger. From then on, they would become the only geniuses of their families and sections. For the various transcendent powers, regardless of sex or clans, there were countless geniuses in every generation. Right now, they were all at the peak of Yuanfu and feared the top rankers of the heavenly fate rankings. However, before them, there were also geniuses who had broken through to Heavenly Dipper, and their statuses weren't any lower than them. After them, there would still be more Heaven's favorites emerging. The geniuses were all candidates to become the leaders of their respective clans and sections. Only by defeating everyone else in this cruel competition would they be able to rise above the rest and become the one and only future leader. Now, the Empyrean's inheritance was undoubtedly a great opportunity. In Zhan Chen's palms, an incomparably sharp sword appeared. This was a peak-tier third-rank divine weapon. In Yang Fan's hands, a pair of armlets appeared, covering both his palms. This was also a peak-tier third-rank divine weapon. Although the Heaven's favorites didn't have any fourth-rank divine weapons, it didn't mean that their sex didn't. However, they were all Heaven's favorites, and were the future leaders of their respective clans and sections. The requirements of their clans and sects were the strictest, and they wouldn't allow them to rely on powerful divine weapons. Even if they had one, it would only be used for survival or fleeing, and not for attacking purposes. This way, they might meet with danger in the outside world, but only by doing so would they be able to suppress their potential and force out their future. Even if they couldn't defeat their opponents, they would still have life-saving methods, because they were Heaven's favorites. If there came a day when they could surpass the other Heaven's favorites, their clans and sects would no longer restrict them. The long spears in the hands of the golden-armored warriors emitted a crisp sound as they prepared themselves for battle. The inheritance book was right behind them. If they had the ability, they should go and get it. Zhan Chen's silhouette instantly dashed towards a golden-armored warrior. The sword in his hand slashed out, and in an instant, a resplendent rain of swords appeared in the air. This rain of swords actually congregated in the air, transforming into an incomparably sharp sword that pierced towards the head of the golden-armored warrior. The eyes of the golden-armored warrior gleamed with sharpness. The long spear in his hands trembled repeatedly, and in an instant golden light filled the air. His palms trembled continuously as the golden light transformed into a golden screen that enveloped everything. The spear shot out, breaking apart the rain of swords. Yang Fan and the others simultaneously rushed out. His star-seizing palms contained boundless might, as though he could pluck the stars and moon from the sky. In addition to the terrifying divine weapon in his hands, his palms were filled with a terrifying destructive might, directly colliding with the long spear of the golden-armored warrior. Qin Wentian, on the other hand, wasn't having an easy time. That golden-armored warrior seemed determined to kill him no matter what. Zhu Sha, seeing that Yang Fan had already rushed over to snatch the inheritance book, turned his cold gaze onto Qin Wentian. This brat deserved death. Zhu Sha's palms glowed with an intense astral light, as though he had been tempered by the constellations. Abruptly, he dashed out, blasting out with his palms. Instantly, a resplendent astral palm imprint blasted towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's countenance turned ashen. There was still another golden-armored warrior attacking him. Qin Wentian. Bai Lui stood at the side of the great hall, her countenance pale. She stepped forward, only to see Zhu Sha blasting out with a palm strike. Bai Lui groaned in agony as she coughed out fresh blood, and was directly flung out of the great hall. With her current strength, it was impossible for her to participate in the crisis-tempering grounds. Qin Wentian channeled the power of his divine inscriptions to defend against Zhu Sha's star-seizing palms. However, the terrifying palm imprint still penetrated his defenses, causing his blood and qi to churn violently. At the same time, the long spear in the hands of the golden-armored warrior stabbed out with lightning speed, causing Qin Wentian's eyes to widen in shock. This spear strike was incomparably fast, containing boundless might. There was no way he could block it. No. Bai Luyi's countenance turned as white as a sheet of paper. Bai Lu Jing was also being held back by the golden-armored warrior, and had no way to support Qin Wentian. Puchi! A light sound rang out as the long spear pierced through Qin Wentian's body, piercing through him. Yet, the spear was pulled out in an instant, showing how sharp it was. Qin Wentian's body was slammed into the walls of the great hall as a deafening boom echoed out. His head spun as his heart turned into ashes. Damn it! Zhu Sha coldly snorted as he once again blasted out a palm strike towards Qin Wentian. Bai Lui dashed over, blocking the attack, and with a deafening boom, her body slammed ruthlessly into Qin Wentian, causing her to cough out large mouthfuls of blood. Little E. Bai Lu Jing's countenance paled as he howled in rage. However, the strength of the golden-armored warrior in front of him was simply too terrifying. There was no time for him to be distracted, and a golden long spear almost pierced through his heart. The 9 golden-armored warriors were all at the pinnacle of Yuanfu. How difficult would it be to obtain the inheritance? Humph! Zhu Sha coldly laughed upon seeing this. He advanced forward, wanting to kill Bai Lu Yi and Qin Wentian. However, his footsteps abruptly halted as he saw the cold gazes of the golden-armored warriors boring into his body, causing him to shiver involuntarily. These golden-armored warriors didn't just want to kill Qin Wentian. They wanted to kill all of them, leaving behind only those who had the qualifications to obtain the inheritance. The golden-armored warriors launched their attacks at Zhu Sha, and Zhu Sha could only defend himself. He didn't have the time to check on Qin Wentian. Bai Lu Yi's countenance was as pale as a sheet of paper, as she walked to the side of Qin Wentian. Seeing the unceasing flow of blood, Bai Lu Yi tore a corner of her robe and pressed it against Qin Wentian's wound. Qin Wentian, wake up! Bai Lu Yi patted Qin Wentian's face as she continued. You can't fall asleep? Qin Wentian's consciousness was blurry at this moment. Zhu Sha's ferocious attack, as well as the spear strike from the golden-armored warrior. One could only imagine the severity of his injuries. He only felt a sense of dizziness, as though he wanted to sleep forever. Amidst his hazy consciousness, he could faintly sense someone calling out to him. The voices in his ears grew softer and softer, and at this moment, he fell into absolute silence. Am I going to die? I can't accept this. Qin Wentian's heart was filled with pain. There were too many things he had yet to accomplish. How could he die here? But at this moment he really wanted to sleep. He was in so much pain that he didn't want to think about all of this. Within Qin Wentian's body, the candle flame was still blazing. Strands of golden threads intertwined around the candle flame. This candle flame was like the flame of his heart. His heart sense seemed to be contained within this candle flame. This candle flame seemed to be dimming. The calling from the outside world grew weaker and weaker, and the silhouettes around him grew more and more blurry. Was he really going to die? The cruel path of the martial path was filled with dangers and dangers. Qin Wentian had come all the way here, yet the golden-armored warrior said that he wasn't qualified to receive the inheritance. Why wasn't he qualified? Was it because his cultivation base was too low? The candle flame was still blazing. The power of his bloodline circulated around the candle flame, and the terrifying aura from the golden-armored warrior gradually weakened. However, at this moment, within the flickering light of the candle flame, Qin Wentian saw a familiar silhouette. That silhouette got closer and closer, becoming clearer and clearer. Uncle Black. Qin Wentian's heart was still trembling. Wentian. It was as though a voice rang out in his heart. You cannot die. Another voice resounded in his heart. I cannot die. An intense obsession surged in Qin Wentian's heart. How could he die? Where did Uncle Black go? Was Qingcheng doing well in the Pill Emperor Hall? Dai was still in the 9 Mystical Palace. The Azure faction had yet to rise up. How could he die? The candle flame lit up. The golden threads gradually fused into the candle flame, growing brighter and brighter. In an instant Qin Wentian's heart was lit up as well. Roar! Another surge of bloodline power roared, filled with a boundless terror. This surge of bloodline power seemed to originate from the primordial era as it let out a roar of rage. What made Qin Wentian even more shocked was that the bloodline power within his body seemed to have transformed into a gigantic primordial beast, peering down at the heavens and earth with disdain. Within the candle flame, Qin Wentian's silhouette could be seen. He inclined his head and stared at the silhouette of the primordial beast, feeling a deep sense of awe. Why was the bloodline in his body so powerful? Not only that, the power of the primordial bloodline seemed to fear the candle flame. Do you know who you are? A voice rang out in his heart. He, Qin Wentian, possessed such a powerful bloodline. Who was he? Did the golden-armored man say that he wasn't worthy of the inheritance? In that case, he wanted to see if the inheritance of this ascendant had the qualifications to say that he wasn't worthy. The candle flame grew brighter, the power of the bloodline grew stronger, and his injuries were healing. As long as the fire in his heart wasn't extinguished, he would live forever. The golden threads around the candle flame abruptly transformed into a bolt of lightning, shooting towards the center of Qin Wentian's brows. Instantly, the center of Qin Wentian's brows trembled, as though a third eye was about to open. Chapter 271. Qin Wentian only felt a piercing pain in the center of his brows, as though there was a strange energy squirming there. This strange movement seemed to be resonating with the candle flame in his body. What his heart saw was in the center of his brows. Strands of golden threads connected the candle flame to the center of his brows, and Qin Wentian could sense it even more clearly. This was also the power of a bloodline. In his body there was more than one type of bloodline. The bloodline that was as violent as a demon, the bloodline that was once sealed by chains, was violent and terrifying, as though it came from the primordial era like a king among demons. However, he was filled with trepidation and dread towards the candle flame. That candle flame's bloodline might even be of a higher grade than the primordial demon king's bloodline. In a person's body, there were two types of bloodlines, both of which were of such a high grade. Qin Wentian asked himself, who was he? Who were his parents? The middle-aged man he often saw in the tiny astral being should be his father, right? Why would he leave his memories in the tiny astral being for him? No matter how many thoughts ran through his mind, he had no way to answer them. He wanted to open his eyes but to no avail. However, he discovered that he could already see everything outside. It was as though he had another eye, and the scenes outside were directly imprinted into his heart. He saw Bai Lu, whose countenance was pale, worrying about his life. He saw Bai Lu Jing, who was still engaged in a life-and-death struggle, and the golden-armored guards. At this moment Bai Lu Yi's countenance suddenly changed, as a hint of color returned to her pale countenance. She saw that Qin Wentian's wounds were no longer bleeding, and that Qin Wentian's aura was recovering, as well as his vitality. All of a sudden, Bai Lu Yi's countenance stiffened. She lifted her head, staring at the center of Qin Wentian's brows. There seemed to be a golden bolt of lightning shooting out, as though it was an eye. Bai Lu Yi felt her heart pounding as she stared at Qin Wentian. An instant later, the golden eye closed once more, only to see Qin Wentian opening his eyes and staring at her. You're awake? A smile appeared on Bai Lu Yi's face. This guy finally woke up. She was frightened just now. She thought that Qin Wentian would never wake up. Yes. Qin Wentian nodded and looked at the battlefield. At this moment he realized that he could see through the cultivation of these people. Zhan Chen, Yang Fan and Zhu Sha were all at the 9th level of Yuanfu. Even those golden-armored men had a cultivation base at the 9th level of Yuanfu. Qin Wentian frowned slightly. How is this possible? These golden-armored men actually had cultivation. Weren't they just puppets? It was clearly impossible for a puppet to have a cultivation level. However, after opening the divine golden eye, he could clearly sense that these golden-armored men had a cultivation level. The fact that the golden-armored man had a cultivation base meant that they were humans and not puppets. A stellar martial cultivator at the peak of Yuanfu. Yet he was willing to be a puppet? Qin Wentian didn't understand. He glanced at the ground again. Instantly, the crisscrossing divine inscriptions appeared in his mind. There was no need for him to use his heart sense to sense them. He could see through them with a single glance. Every single divine inscription, every single complete divine inscription, could be seen with a single glance. And at this moment, his eyes suddenly lit up as a faint smile appeared on his face. So this was the case. The ascendant who left behind this inheritance was an extremely powerful Grandmaster inscriptionist. He left behind a complete 4th-rank divine inscription, and this 4th-rank divine inscription could be divided into many peak-tier, 3rd-rank divine inscriptions. Such a method truly caused one to sigh in amazement. If it weren't for the fact that there were some transformations occurring in his body, he would never have been able to comprehend it. This vast hall itself was a gigantic divine inscription. Instantly, Qin Wentian's body fused into the divine inscription. This 4th-rank divine inscription was right beneath his feet. Now that he had seen through it and comprehended it, it was extremely simple to use it. The corners of Qin Wentian's mouth curled up into a light smile. That demonic smile caused Bai Lui to be dumbfounded. This fellow had changed again. What was with that eye earlier? You left a 4th-rank divine inscription here. If no one discovered it, they could only depend on their combat prowess as well as these 3rd-rank divine inscriptions to determine who the inheritor would be. But if someone discovered it, that person would be able to end everything and become your inheritor. You are truly meticulous. Qin Wentian mused in his heart. This tempering ground was all for the sake of selecting the successor he was most satisfied with. However, when Qin Wentian, arrived here, the golden-armored man said that he wasn't worthy, that he didn't have the qualifications to receive the inheritance. But what about now? Qin Wentian stood up, his eyes flashing with a cold sharpness as he swept his gaze over those who were currently in combat. Follow behind me. Qin Wentian smiled at Bai Lui. Bai Lui froze for a moment before replying. You still want the inheritance? Let's go. After speaking, Bai Lui pulled Qin Wentian along, wanting to leave. Although she knew that Qin Wentian's physique had undergone some changes, his cultivation base was still too low. Qin Wentian's cultivation base was only at the 3rd level of Yuanfu, while the people here were all geniuses at the peak of Yuanfu, ranked in the heavenly fate rankings. Even if he borrowed the power of the divine inscriptions, Qin Wentian wouldn't be able to obtain the inheritance. In fact, he might even be killed by the golden-armored man. This place was too dangerous. They had to leave. However, Bai Lui only saw Qin Wentian standing there unmoving. He smiled at her. Trust me. Bai Lui's beautiful eyes froze. Before this, she had always trusted Qin Wentian. But this time around she felt that he was unreliable. After all, what Qin Wentian wanted to do was too unrealistic. Her elder brother, Bai Lu Jing, was a ranker on the heavenly fate rankings, yet he had no hope at all. He could only defend against the attack of the golden-armored man. You didn't die even after that? Zhu Sha's cold voice drifted over. The golden-armored man was taken aback as he glanced at Qin Wentian with a sharp gaze. That attack of his actually failed to kill Qin Wentian? Help me deal with him. The golden-armored man glanced at the other golden-armored men who were still guarding the statue. Momentarily, one of the golden-armored men flickered as it lunged towards Zhu Sha. The golden-armored man who was fighting against Qin Wentian also left the battle and walked towards Qin Wentian. Your recovery speed isn't bad. The golden-armored man coldly spoke. Abruptly, his long spear erupted forth. This time around he would never allow Qin Wentian to live. That mistake earlier was a humiliation to him. Bai Lui's countenance stiffened as her countenance paled. However, she only saw Qin Wentian advancing forwards, and an instant later, the divine inscriptions on the ground lit up. Roar! An azure dragon roared, blasting towards the golden-armored man. At the same time, a terrifying great axe descended from the skies, cleaving downwards. There were also throat-slicing arrows that shot towards the golden-armored man. With every step Qin Wentian took, a towering might could be felt. The divine inscriptions around him all lit up, moving according to his will. Rumble! The terrifying attacks blasted towards the golden-armored man, causing him to stagger backwards. The divine inscriptions on the golden-armored man's body changed slightly as he stared at Qin Wentian. The terrifying divine inscriptions around him flickered unceasingly, and there were even signs that they were expanding outwards. Huh! The eyes of the golden-armored man narrowed. How could this be? Bai Lui was also stunned. She stared in bewilderment at Qin Wentian, who was enveloped by a screen of light. His divine inscription seemed to have grown even stronger. Die! The golden-armored man roared as he stabbed out with his spear. A terrifying vortex appeared, engulfing Qin Wentian. Humph! Qin Wentian snorted. Abruptly, a gigantic python appeared from below, coiling around the golden-armored man's body. The golden-armored man howled in rage as he struggled to break free from the python's grasp, only to see a barrage of arrows shooting towards him. He twisted his spear, blocking the incoming arrows. Scram! Qin Wentian roared. With a thunderous boom, the gigantic hammer slammed into his body, sending him flying through the air. The battle here instantly attracted the attention of the other golden-armored men, as well as Zhang Chan and the rest. Their eyes involuntarily narrowed when they saw the changes in Qin Wentian. The circulating divine inscriptions grew increasingly stronger, and the entire Great Hall seemed to be trembling, as though it was about to fall under Qin Wentian's control. The entire Great Hall grew even more radiant. Zhu Sha's countenance turned ashen. Qin Wentian was controlling all the divine inscriptions in the Great Hall. We have to kill him first. Zhu Sha pointed to Qin Wentian as he spoke. At this moment, a thunderous rumbling sound echoed out as the divine inscriptions in the Great Hall converged together, manifesting an incomparably gigantic astral arm in the air. The crowd stared in shock at this scene. Was this the divine inscriptions of the Great Hall? This fellow, he's controlling all the divine inscriptions in the Great Hall. Bai Luyi's heart pounded as she felt the might of the astral arm. Even the ascendant who left behind the inheritance would have never imagined that the one who activated the fourth-rank divine inscriptions would have a cultivation base at the third level of Yuanfu. If it weren't for these divine inscriptions, even if Qin Wentian underwent a transformation, he still wouldn't have the qualifications to contend against these ascendants. But this place was his battlefield. The divine inscriptions inscribed by the ascendant were prepared for him, and would be under his control. Qin Wentian stared at Zhu Sha, the coldness in his eyes causing Zhu Sha's body to involuntarily tremble. Earlier, he was the one who had attacked Qin Wentian, causing Bai Lui to be heavily injured. Zhu Sha, he deserved to die. In the air, a gigantic astral arm descended from the skies. Zhu Sha could feel the terrifying might radiating from it, and he felt as though he was facing a heavenly Dipper sovereign's astral arm. His heart pounded furiously. His silhouette flickered, wanting to retreat, only to see the astral arm sweeping past him. A thunderous boom rang out as the earth trembled violently. The spectators felt their hearts pounding violently as they stared at the palm imprint imprinted on the ground. The astral arm shifted away. Yet Zhu Sha had already transformed into a puddle of blood. Not even his bones remained. He had been killed. Qin Wentian then turned his gaze onto the golden-armored young man. The look in his eyes actually caused the golden-armored young man's heart to involuntarily tremble. He then spoke to Qin Wentian. Congratulations on passing the test. The inheritance belongs to you. Upon hearing the golden-armored young man's words, Qin Wentian didn't feel happy at all. On the contrary, his eyes were as cold as ever. He had almost died here, and Bai Lui had almost died as well. He had participated in the refinement grounds, and there had been several life and death situations. If the golden-armored young man wasn't willing to pass the inheritance to him, he could have just let him go. Yet, the golden-armored young man had directly acted to kill him. Inheritance? Qin Wentian laughed. I almost died here. And you're telling me that I've passed the test? Test? What qualifications do you have to test me? As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, the astral arm slammed down, shattering the golden-armored young man into pieces. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.